Chapter 2253. A Grim Reaper could only exist for about 500 years. For someone like Blackie, who was over 300 years old, he could only collect 10,000 to 20,000 souls. Most of the souls had already gone to where they were supposed to go. There were also some that he kept. Some were used as test subjects, while others were used as servants. He could only take out about 1,000 or 2,000 souls. If there was a Grim Reaper who had been collecting souls for 500 years without sending them to where they were supposed to go and kept them in his hands, he would probably be able to collect tens of thousands of souls. This was probably a relatively close value. Let's say that the person had obtained the Grim Reaper's scythe by accident. When he obtained the scythe, he also obtained the souls of the scythe's original owner, which were probably in the tens of thousands. It would be abnormal if it was more than that. The Grim Reaper couldn't kill at will. For example, Blackie had evolved a few times, but he still followed the rules of the Soul Reapers and didn't dare to violate them. So Chun Zhao had reason to believe that the souls the person before him used weren't the scythe's previous owner's inheritance. They were obtained by killing. The person before him was an out-and-out butcher. So Chun Zhao killed him to get rid of a scourge for the people. The Soul Reapers were called Grim Reapers mainly because their control and manipulation of souls had reached a level close to that of a god. Under the Grim Reaper scythe's control, the 100,000 vengeful spirits moved as if they were his arms. But even with the Grim Reaper scythe, he couldn't combine the 100,000 vengeful spirits into one. If he could, he might be able to hurt Xin Zhao. But just having them advance and retreat together was like splitting their power. The threat to Chun Zhao was negligible. In fact, it was pointless. The flying vengeful spirits had already blocked Chun Zhao's vision, but he could still sense the scythe's position. Chun Zhao didn't care about the vengeful spirits blocking his way. He slapped the scythe through the air. Suddenly, the scythe sensed something and immediately turned into the Grim Reaper. Instantly, a terrifying power passed through his body and landed not far behind him. Boom! Everything within a few hundred meters was flattened. Even the concrete on the ground was lifted up. Chun Zhao felt it was a pity. As expected, I shouldn't have hoped for such a long-range attack. But Scythe was sweating profusely. If that attack had landed on his body, he would probably have been smashed into pieces. It was too terrifying. This kind of attack was too terrifying. Moreover, from the looks of it, it didn't seem like he was using his full strength at all. It was more like a casual strike. This attack did not cause any damage to the scythe, but all the vengeful spirits blocking his way were killed by the attack. At the very least, thousands of vengeful spirits were destroyed. No, it was too dangerous to continue like this. Scythe thought of escaping, but after thinking about it, he felt that running away would not only damage his reputation. Moreover, he understood his own characteristics so well. Who knew if he would find a way to break his ability in the future? If I can't get rid of him today, in the future, he would definitely become a great threat to him. Finally, Scythe made up her mind. Since he couldn't get rid of him here, he would drag him into a different dimension. Scythe swung the death scythe at the empty air. Chun Zhao suddenly felt a chill on his back. When he turned around, he saw that there was a spatial rift behind him. Before Chun Zhao could react, the countless vengeful spirits in front of him launched their final attack. Countless vengeful spirits slammed into Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao understood that the scythe wanted to pull him into the different dimension. More accurately, it wanted to knock him in. If it was just these vengeful spirits, even if there were 10 times more of them, they still wouldn't be able to knock him into the rift. It was like a small stream that was flooded. No matter how fierce it was, it couldn't break a well-made dam. Right now, Chun Zhao was the dam that was blocking the path to forgiveness. However, Chun Zhao wanted to see how the alternate space behind the crack was different from the one Blackie had created. So, Chun Zhao moved his feet. The flood of vengeful spirits immediately rushed him into the rift. In the blink of an eye, Chun Zhao was on the other side of the rift. Scythe followed closely behind and entered this place. Welcome. You're the only living person who's coming here. Scythe floated high above Chun Zhao's head. In here, I'm the only god. In the sky behind Scythe, A huge patch of dark clouds covered the ground. It wasn't an ordinary dark cloud. It was a boundless terror formed by countless vengeful spirits. Even Chen Zhao couldn't help but gasp when he saw this. How many vengeful spirits are there? How many people have you killed? Chen Zhao thought that he'd killed countless people already. But after seeing the vengeful spirits here, he couldn't help but exclaim. Most of the vengeful spirits here were black. This meant that this person had committed mass murder in a certain part of Africa. Here, you'll face me, who has the power of 1,000,000 souls just like this. Scythe didn't even need to use the power of the Grim Reaper's scythe here. He only needed a slap down from above. The dark clouds in the sky suddenly turned into a huge palm and smashed down at Chen Zhao's head. Chen Zhao looked up at the sky-high palm and also slapped up. The momentum of the world also turned into a huge palm and charged at the falling black palm. Rumble. Instantly, the sky changed color. Rumbles and shock waves swept through every corner of this not-so-big space. Scythe's expression changed. How is this possible? He'd used the power of 2,000,000 vengeful spirits to activate that shocking attack. But this man didn't have anything to rely on. How could he use that attack? Since you know that I know about the Grim Reaper and the Grim Reaper's scythe, you shouldn't have brought me here, Chen Zhao said, looking at Scythe. Here, you don't have a third form. You can only be a spirit or a physical body, which happens to be the forms I like to face the most. If Scythe kept fighting Chen Zhao outside, he could use the Grim Reaper transformation to hide his body in an alternate space and avoid all of Scythe's attacks. But here, everyone was in an alternate space. This meant that Scythe's greatest advantage was gone. Scythe's expression changed, but he still pretended to be calm and said, "But here I have endless power." It's not endless. 2,000,000 vengeful spirits seems like a lot, but it's not inexhaustible. At least to me, this number isn't that despairing. Chapter 2254. Arrogant and Ignorant. Scythe didn't believe that a spiritualist who could fight against 2,000,000 vengeful spirits really existed in this world. So, when Chen Zhao said that, he naturally thought that Chen Zhao was bragging. Or maybe Chen Zhao didn't understand what 2,000,000 meant. Scythe raised the Grim Reaper scythe above his head. The dark clouds in the sky formed a huge vortex. The vortex started from the Grim Reaper scythe. The vengeful spirits in the vortex were being sucked into the Grim Reaper scythe. With power that could destroy everything, it shot toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao watched as the apocalyptic power shot toward him. But he didn't look too serious. Instead, he murmured to himself, "Such a majestic scene. It's a pity there's no audience. Just tremble in front of my power of God." Scythe thought that Chen Zhao's murmur was fear. "Brother, you overestimate yourself. Your power is like the Pacific Ocean compared to God. Stubborn. You'll become one of my thousands of servants." Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and didn't fight back. The dark lava wrapped around him and blocked the flood. The 2,000,000 vengeful spirits were a huge amount of wealth. If Chen Zhao had to collect them himself, even if he had the ability, he wouldn't have the guts to do this. His moral bottom line and the test of human nature made it impossible for him to do this. But it wasn't difficult at all to take other people's things. He wouldn't have any psychological burden. He'd let others take the blame, and he'd take the benefits. Then there was the scythe. That was the Grim Reaper's scythe. He had borrowed it from Blackie many times before, wanting to study Blackie's Grim Reaper scythe. But Blackie had always rejected him. This time, Blackie wouldn't have anything to say if he took something else. Go again. Seeing that Chen Zhao was still fine under the terrifying attack of the vengeful spirits, Scythe was even more shocked and furious. Scythe used almost all his strength. The flood of vengeful spirits surged even more violently. However, this attack wasn't fundamentally different from the previous ones. "Brother, can't you do something else? For example, absorb the 2,000,000 vengeful spirits into your body and convert their power into your own." So I felt like he was going crazy. The person he was facing was not only powerful enough to make one's hair stand on end. Even his thoughts were terrifying to the point of making one's hair stand on end. Absorb 2,000,000 vengeful spirits into his body? That was no different for suicide. Not to mention 2 million vengeful spirits. He wouldn't even be able to handle 2,000. He was able to control 2 million vengeful spirits because he wielded the death god's scythe. However, this did not mean that he could really devour 2 million vengeful spirits, although he arrogantly called himself a god here. But he knew his own family well. Whether it was outside or inside, the only thing he could do was to control these vengeful spirits to attack his enemies. He didn't even dare to put down the scythe of the Grim Reaper, because he was the one who killed these vengeful spirits. Put down the scythe of the death god, and these 2 million vengeful spirits would lose all restraints. He didn't know if the enemy in front of him would die or not, but he was definitely going to die. Looks like you don't have any other moves. How about this? Lend me your scythe to play with, and I'll spare your dog life. Go to hell. Sickle flew into a rage and shouted, "Mutual destruction of grievances." Countless vengeful spirits exploded around him. Every vengeful spirit was a massive body of energy. The explosion of every vengeful spirit would bring a terrifying impact. Even the user of the scythe was afraid of the power of thousands and tens of thousands of vengeful spirits exploding. He kept distancing himself from the vengeful spirit to prevent himself from getting caught up in the explosion. But the next moment, his pupils constricted. He saw Chun Zhao walk out of the violent explosion unscathed. Chains of hell. At this moment, countless vengeful spirits fused together. Their spirit bodies twisted and transformed, forming huge black chains. The black chains wrapped around Chun Zhao. On the other end of the chains, countless vengeful spirits were tugging at them. Have you studied in Japan before? These moves of yours seem very Japanese. Chun Zhao was tightly bound, but his casual attitude made Sickle's heart palpitate. Tear him apart. Sickle roared. Countless vengeful spirits pulled at the chains. Perhaps they'd been tortured by poverty and hunger when they were alive, but they'd been slaughtered. Their resentment made them even stronger than when they were alive. Plus, there were so many of them. Almost no one could fight them in terms of strength. Except Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao spread his arms and shattered the black chains. Countless vengeful spirits were shattered. Chun Zhao grinned. He raised his right arm and rubbed his fist. My right arm feels a little thirsty. Hungry. Sickle was confused and couldn't react. Chun Zhao's right palm suddenly opened into a mouth. Then a terrifying suction force came from the mouth. Countless vengeful spirits were sucked into the mouth while wailing and struggling. Sickle's scalp went numb. What was he doing? He was devouring the vengeful spirits. Devouring the vengeful spirits that even he didn't dare to touch. The dark clouds in the sky started thinning. The number of vengeful spirits was decreasing rapidly. Chun Zhao estimated that he devoured around 300,000 to 400,000 vengeful spirits. This was pretty much the mouth of gluttony's limit. Chun Zhao pointed his palm at the sky. A beam of black light shot out from the mouth of gluttony. The black light pierced through the sky. A ring-shaped hole was blasted in the dark clouds that had covered the sky. Sickle's eyeballs almost popped out. Even with the Grim Reaper scythe, he couldn't attack like Chun Zhao. The vengeful spirits in the sky were in complete chaos. They were formed from crazy, vengeful spirits. But they also had fear. Right now, Chun Zhao was the one who made their fear win over their crazy, vengeful spirits. Sickle hurriedly used the Grim Reaper scythe to appease the vengeful spirits. But suddenly, he realized that they were 100 times harder to control than before. Less than 1% of the vengeful spirits could be appeased. The strongest and craziest vengeful spirits had completely lost control. The powerful vengeful spirits started attacking indiscriminately. It wasn't just Chun Zhao. Even Sickle himself was attacked. Unmoved, Chun Zhao stood where he was. The vengeful spirits could attack however they wanted. As for Sickle, he was clearly flustered. There were too many vengeful spirits. They were so huge that it made one feel despair. For the first time, Sickle felt fear at the power he controlled. The power that he'd once been proud of didn't help him defeat the enemy. Instead, it hurt him. Chapter 2255. Fortunately, the wraiths were only violent. They didn't have a clear target. They were just attacking everything. Chun Zhao also attacked, and so did the scythe. Their own kind attacked too. Right now, Scythe was in a complete mess. He couldn't even protect himself, let alone continue attacking Chun Zhao. Scythe didn't have enough power to suppress and pacify the frightened wraiths. All his control over wraiths came from the Grim Reaper scythe. But the Grim Reaper scythe wasn't omnipotent. If the Grim Reaper scythe could control all the spirits, then Chun Zhao only needed to take the scythe to hell, and he could control billions of souls. This was simply impossible. The Grim Reaper scythe had a limit. Chun Zhao didn't know the exact number. But the wraiths in this space were definitely much more than what the Grim Reaper scythe could control. If these wraiths were muddle-headed and didn't have any consciousness, then everything would be fine. But once they became restless, Scythe would be in trouble. Go away. You damn things, come here. Scythe waved the Grim Reaper scythe in his hand. But the wraiths couldn't be controlled at all. They were still madly attacking every individual they could see. Scythe glanced at Chun Zhao in the midst of his busy schedule. He was sure now, that guy couldn't be defeated at all. So many wraiths were attacking him, but he didn't defend or dodge at all. The wraiths couldn't even touch him. They weren't on the same level at all. It was funny that Scythe had clashed with Chun Zhao in the beginning because they wore the same clothes. Of course, he wanted to kill Chun Zhao later to keep his secret, but Scythe realized it too late. Scythe looked around. Since he couldn't beat Chun Zhao, he had to find a way out. But looking at the current situation, he couldn't escape at all. Chun Zhao was too strong. Scythe and the guy fighting Scythe have disappeared for half an hour. I've heard that the Scythe has only been used a few times in the past. Whenever it encountered a strong enemy, the Scythe would disappear together with the enemy. I think the Scythe must have pulled the enemy into some unknown space, AI Nancy said. Then who do you think will win? Of course it's the Scythe. There's no doubt about it. AI Nancy said affirmatively. Do you know a lot about scythes? I once followed Mr. Wynn to the ruins of a scythe battle, so I know how terrifying he is. It's almost impossible for humans to defeat him. Are you saying that even Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Blood Mary are no match for him? That's not the case. Zhang Tianshi and the 23rd Blood Mary's powers are already comparable to the legendary gods, so it's not an exaggeration to call them gods who walk on Earth. I think even a monster like Sickle wouldn't stand a chance against Zhang Tianshi and the 23rd Blood Mary. That's right, AI Nancy said, but Scythe won't fight with them. Looking at all of Scythe's actions in the past, he has always been very cautious. He will not take the initiative to provoke those who are stronger than him, and he prefers to plot everything in the shadows. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the battlefield. That fissure came very suddenly. It was deep and dark, and he couldn't see what was inside. But soon the crack began to change. The first thing that came out of the crack was a terrifying howl. It was the despair of countless vengeful spirits. Then, the vengeful spirits rushed out of the crack like a flood. Huh, Scythe is out. Just then, everyone saw a figure holding a scythe rush out of the crack with the vengeful spirits. Looks like Scythe won. The result didn't surprise them too much. Wasn't it a natural result? Scythe was the leader of the 10 villains. Wait, suddenly, the Black Soul realized something. He looks like he's running. Everyone saw Scythe's expression. Panic, fear, confusion, and despair. Just then, another figure rushed out of the crack. The figure was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was before Scythe. Scythe raised the Grim Reaper scythe and wanted to fight back. But the next moment, the person grabbed Scythe's wrist with one hand and strangled Scythe with the other. Chun Zhao grabbed Scythe's neck. Do you know why I didn't kill you in the alternate dimension? Scythe couldn't breathe from the choking. It was the first time in his life that he felt suffocating. When he heard Chun Zhao's words, he suddenly realized. Chun Zhao knew about the Grim Reaper scythe, but he didn't know how to use it. He didn't kill Scythe in the alternate dimension because he seemed to have left him a way out. He wanted him to open the entrance to the alternate dimension. When he opened the crack, it would be his true death. This was also why Chun Zhao didn't kill him in the alternate dimension. Scythe struggled, but he couldn't break free from Chun Zhao's hand. Instead, Chun Zhao's strength increased a little. Crack! Sickle saw Chun Zhao break his wrist with brute force. His Grim Reaper scythe fell into Chun Zhao's hand. The moment the Grim Reaper scythe left his hand, all the vengeful spirits lost their last restraints. Roar! Countless vengeful spirits were surging in all directions. Rumble! The vengeful spirits rampaged. No matter what stood in their way, they would destroy everything. Chun Zhao raised a scythe. A few vengeful spirits charged over and pounced on Scythe, tearing at him. In less than 10 seconds, Scythe was gnawed to nothing by the vengeful spirits. In the end, this evil person still died at the hands of the people he'd killed in the past. Of course, some vengeful spirits charged at Chun Zhao too, but they were destroyed before they could get near him. Go! AI Nancy cried out in surprise because they were too close to the center of the battlefield. A large number of vengeful spirits spread toward them. Chun Zhao had sensed AI Nancy and the others long ago, but he didn't care who they were. Holding the Grim Reaper scythe, Chun Zhao wanted to control the uncontrollable vengeful spirits. But the Grim Reaper scythe didn't react at all. Looks like we're in big trouble. Chun Zhao felt awkward. Using the Grim Reaper scythe was more troublesome than he'd imagined. And Blackie wasn't with him now. He couldn't learn it even if he wanted to. More and more vengeful spirits charged out of the crack. Without any restraints, they spread to a wider area. Soon, the entire street was covered by vengeful spirits. Chapter 2256. Soon, the vengeful spirits covered the entire desolate market. Chun Zhao had destroyed hundreds of thousands of vengeful spirits in that alternate space. But there were still more than 1 million of them surging out from the spatial crack. Thankfully, this was desolate market. 1 million vengeful spirits was a terrifying number. But now that they'd completely dispersed, their destructive power was much weaker. Moreover, this place lacked everything, but there was no shortage of ghost hunters. Chun Zhao looked at the hordes of vengeful spirits. They gradually calmed down. The calmness was relative. They just didn't attack each other anymore. But they were still wantonly destroying and attacking. Even Chun Zhao had to face their attacks. Although it was Chun Zhao's fault, he planned to wash his hands of it. He'd act like nothing had happened. Chun Zhao put away the Grim Reaper scythe and turned to leave. At the moment, the entire desolate market was in chaos. After all, such a large number of vengeful spirits had suddenly appeared. Everyone was caught off guard. Wendy, what's going on? Zhang Tianyi criticized Wendy. Where did so many vengeful spirits come from? Don't tell me you don't know. After all, he didn't know the whole story. Naturally, he thought that Wendy had arranged it. Or maybe it had something to do with Wendy. After all, it was impossible to bring such a large number of vengeful spirits in. If it wasn't arranged beforehand, Zhang Tianyi couldn't think of any other possibilities. But this time, he'd really wronged Wendy. When he looked at the vengeful spirits flying in the sky. Every now and then, a few blind ones would run in front of them and walk around. Of course, they'd be taken care of. The number of vengeful spirits was too large. They were so large that they'd changed the spiritual energy here. Even Kelly and Evelyn could see the vengeful spirits. At first, the two girls were trembling in fear. But soon, they realized that these vengeful spirits weren't even cannon fodder in front of Zhang Tianyi and Wendy. I really don't know what's going on. You really don't know? I don't know. The appearance of these vengeful spirits has nothing to do with me, Wendy explained forcefully. Although Zhang Tianyi still didn't believe him, at least he didn't continue asking. Don't let me catch someone messing around, Wendy said, gritting his teeth. He felt that everything in this battle of the Holy Glory trial was really not going well. It seemed like trouble would come knocking at his door at any time. All sorts of things could happen at any time. This made him very angry. More importantly, he didn't even know what was going on. If we include the mausoleum of Theodosius I and the sewer entrance that we just explored, it means that 2 ancient seals have been unlocked. So many vengeful spirits suddenly appeared. Could it be one of the seals? One has speculated. The sudden appearance of these vengeful spirits really has nothing to do with you? Until now, Zhang Tianyi still suspected that it was Wendy's doing, although Zhang Tianyi believed that Wendy would not make a mistake of principle. But this did not mean that he completely trusted Wen's character. Wen himself was an alchemist. As long as one was an alchemist, they would have their crazy side. Who knew if he would take advantage of his position to conduct some unspeakable experiments? He even suspected that the two unlocked seals that had appeared earlier had something to do with Wendy. But he didn't have any evidence to prove his suspicions. If there's a third or fourth seal, we had better think of a way to get to the scene before the others unlocked it and stop the seals from being unlocked. From the current signs, if the seals are unlocked, we'll be in even more trouble, and it might even turn into a major incident. Then we'll have to rearrange the clues we have, Wendy said. Zhang Tianyi nodded. Right now, they were like headless flies, running around aimlessly, without a clue, without a goal. Based on their current efficiency, they were not able to do anything. Even if there was a conspiracy, they couldn't stop it. There are currently 2 suspects, the Hermit Order and the 10 heinous disciples, Wendy continued. The 10 heinous disciples are definitely involved, but we don't know if they're related to the Hermit Order. They shouldn't be. My disciple is currently closely monitoring the Hermit Order members. They wouldn't have the time to commit the crime, Zhang Tianyi replied. In other words, this time was planned by the 10 heinous disciples, Wendy said. If this was planned by the leader of the 10 heinous disciples, then we'd better raise the alarm level. Even Zhang Tianyi didn't dare to be careless when facing the schemes of the 10 heinous disciples. Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi thought of something. Right, assuming that the wasteland market was created to hide the seals, will we be able to find any clues from the ancient books in Istanbul? I do have a lot of ancient books in my lab, but I can't be sure if we'll be able to find any clues from them. We don't have any clues right now, so we can only start with that. Then let's go back now and look at my library. After discussing with Wendy, Zhang Tianyi and Wendy made their decision. Kelly followed behind them. Although she was an ordinary person, she was still able to control herself. Although she was a normal person, after spending half a day with them, she more or less had an idea. Furthermore, she knew all the clues that Zhang Tianyi and Wendy had. Assuming that these seals are interrelated, then they certainly wouldn't be randomly placed. The positions between them should be able to be analyzed and calculated, Kelly said. Your idea is not wrong, but you don't understand magic arrays. The positions of some magic arrays are very complicated, not symmetrical or regular as you think. Can't your magic solve it? Kelly asked. For example, magic like prophecy, can't you do it? No, Wendy shook his head. The method you're talking about is 10 times more difficult than us randomly looking for it now. Kelly and Evelyn were taken to a building. Wendy's lab was in the building. The group went straight to Wendy's treasury. At first, Kylie thought she would see a dark, damp, and messy lab. But when she came to Wendy's lab, she found that Wendy's lab was much better than she had imagined. It was clean, tidy, and orderly. However, they were the only ones in the huge lab. Passing through the lab, the group was taken to a library. All of Wendy's books were here. How are we going to find so many books? Wendy, do you know any books that record the wasteland market? Chapter 2257. That area was when the wasteland market was built. I've read the manuscripts of the previous spiritualists many times, but I didn't find any problems. The wasteland market had been around for hundreds of years, and there were thousands of spiritualists involved. Naturally, some spiritualists would leave notes or manuscripts behind. At this moment, Kelly suddenly said, Mr. Wendy, has anyone else been here besides you? Wendy glanced at Kelly, not understanding why she asked this question. However, he still answered truthfully, my former assistant. Nancy, she often comes and goes here. At this point, Wendy's brows began to furrow. Could it be that Nancy had found something here? There are some special tags here. I've seen these tags in a private lab before, Kelly said. Tags? Why didn't I see them? Wendy asked doubtfully. He was the person most familiar with this place, so it was impossible that he didn't see any tags. This label isn't based on something symbolic. It's based on the books here. These books have their own numbers. If 1 or 2 books are placed in a specific location, it can only be considered a coincidence. But if every book's number is placed in a specific location, then it's not a coincidence. Instead, it's hiding some information. What information? I don't know yet. Kelly began to search according to the numbers she found. Because the numbers were more complicated, Zhang Tianyi didn't see anything suspicious at all. Wendell, on the other hand, was watching Kylie's every move. He vaguely analyzed the pattern of the special tags in Kelly's buckles. In fact, he was already one step ahead of Kelly in calculating the clues for the next step. When he went straight to the last row of bookshelves and felt the wall behind them. Soon, when he found a secret compartment, he reached out and pushed the wall, and a passage appeared on the ground. There's a passage hidden here. Wendy, do you rarely come here? Zhang Tianyi looked at Wendy. Wendy's mood was even more unpleasant now. He felt like he was the world's biggest bitch. Not to mention people like Nancy who schemed to stay by his side. Even an outsider like Kelly was able to find clues at the first moment. He had been here no less than 100 times, but he didn't find any clues at all. However, when everyone followed the passage to the space below, they found that it was a pavilion. There was a bookshelf in the attic, but all the books on the bookshelf had been taken away. It was empty. Wendell was so angry that he almost went berserk. Judging from the traces at the scene, these bookshelves were originally filled with books. These books had all been moved recently, and the only one who could transfer things under Wender's nose was Einander, who was once deeply trusted by Wender. There seems to be a secret marker here, Kelly suddenly said. Secret mark? Wynn frowned at Kelly. This secret mark doesn't belong to the same system as the previous marks, so it might not have been discovered yet. Kelly stepped hard on the brick floor. She was very rhythmic. Some places were heavy, some places were light. After a dozen steps, a secret compartment popped out from the wall. There was a box in the compartment. Wynn stepped forward and picked up the box, eagerly opening it. There were 2 books sealed with a secret technique. When he quickly figured out the sealing magic in the book. One spell was used to preserve books from decay. The other one was used to restrict outsiders from opening the book. However, these 2 spells were just a piece of cake for Wendy. Wynn opened the book without any hindrance. The light in Wynn's eyes suddenly became clear. Finally, the truth he was seeking finally surfaced at this moment. These 2 books were left behind by his ancestors. Wynn stood there and flipped through the books for 30 minutes. Zhang Tianyi was not in a hurry. He just waited. Finally, Wynn closed the book. Did you find any clues? Zhang Tianyi asked. I already know the whole truth, Wynn said, and Einander's identity. Huh? What identity does she have? Her ancestor was also one of the builders of the Wasteland Market, the descendant of the great craftsman Warwick. No wonder she knows so much information that I don't. So what is her ultimate goal? The remains of the sun god in Olympian mythology, Wynn said with a gloomy face. The remains of the sun god? She wants to resurrect the god? Not resurrection. She just wants to get the body of the god. As for how they are going to use it, I don't know yet. Then do you know what her next goal is? The seal that seals the remains of the sun god is the 4 seasons magic of Norse mythology. At present, we already know the location of 2 seals, so it is not difficult to deduce the location of the remaining 2 seals. Using the magic of Norse mythology to seal the gods of Greek mythology. Is there a grudge between these 2 mythological systems? They have nothing to do with each other. Wynn shook his head and said, it's just that the ancestors felt that it was suitable, so they used the magic of Norse mythology to seal the sun god. And it's not a god, just the remains of a god. Mr. Wind, Mr. Zhang, do gods really exist in this world? Maybe not now, but in ancient times they did exist. That is to say, I have a chance to witness a god. There won't be a chance. Neither I nor Celestial Master Zhang will allow this to happen. But didn't you say that it's just the remains of a god? For anyone, the remains of God are a weapon, a terrible weapon. The ancients knew this, so they sealed the remains of the god with a seal. The entire Wasteland Market can be said to be built for this purpose. Do you think we will allow the remains of a god to reappear in the world? Well, Kelly still felt that it was a pity. She had seen a lot of things today. Almost every one of them was beyond her knowledge. If she could see a god today, even if it was the remains of a god, it would be an unexpected gain for her. Unfortunately, neither Zhang Tianyi nor Wind was in the mood to broaden her knowledge. "We'd better act quickly now," Wind said. "From the clues I found, those vengeful spirits did not appear after the seal was unlocked, but the result of someone's actions, probably the work of the 10 evildoers. At present, we don't know their purpose for this step, but we can't let the situation continue to deteriorate. If we really let them control the remains of the sun god, then it will really evolve into a big event." Chapter 2258. Not long after Chen Zhao left the crime scene, Bifla found him. "Where did you go?" Bifla asked. "I expanded my senses a few times, but couldn't find you. Then just now, you suddenly appeared in my range. Weren't you in Desolate Market?" Chen Zhao pointed at the wraiths in the sky. "I encountered a rather troublesome enemy and killed him. These wraiths are because—" Bifla wasn't too surprised. He knew Chen Zhao's abilities, especially after reaching Shanqing State. He understood Chen Zhao's abilities even better. In terms of combat ability, even if he was 10 times stronger, he still wouldn't be Chen Zhao's match. Of course, Chen Zhao was only strong in combat. In other aspects, even 10 Chen Zhao couldn't compare to him. "Do you know who he is?" "No. He said he's very famous. His name is Scythe. Have you heard of him?" "Yes, I've heard of him. He's indeed famous." "Very famous, actually," Bifla answered calmly. "That famous?" "Basically, he's a big boss in movies and TV shows." "I think so too. Anyway, his magic tends to be evil. Didn't you get any spoils from him?" Chen Zhao took out the Grim Reaper scythe. "I stole his weapon. This isn't a living weapon." Bifla immediately saw something wrong. "The living probably can't use it. My friend is one too. I'll ask him how to use it later." "You really have a lot of friends." Bifla looked up at the wraiths in the sky. Since Bifla had appeared, they'd been attacked by more than 10 waves of wraiths. Some were alone, while others were in groups. These wraiths had covered the entire Desolate Market. "You've caused a lot of trouble for the participants of the Battle of Holy Glory," Bifla said. "I don't think so. There's a lot of wraiths, but they're too scattered. If they can focus on attacking a team, it might cause a lot of trouble. But no one's controlling them now, and they're spread across such a large area. Even if a team encounters dozens of wraiths, it might not be a problem. If a single person encountered dozens of wraiths, it might be dangerous. But now, the Battle of Holy Glory was mostly in groups. Moreover, they were all elites among spiritualists. No matter how one looked at it, it wouldn't be troublesome for them to deal with tens of vengeful spirits. Some of these vengeful spirits are extremely powerful. Just now, I met a pair of male and female vengeful spirits. Their strength is not to be underestimated. Since I can meet them, the other teams can definitely meet them too." "Is that so? I didn't notice." Chen Zhao indeed didn't notice anything, mainly because a large number of vengeful spirits had been rampaging there. Chen Zhao couldn't tell who was stronger and who was weaker. Chen Zhao was also a bit worried about his team. Just as Bifla said, if their team encountered a few powerful vengeful spirits, they might not be able to defeat them. "I have something to do," Chen Zhao said. "Bye." The Supernatural Organizations team is over there in that direction. Stunned, Chen Zhao looked back at Bifla. "I know you're worried about your team," Bifla said indifferently. "Moreover, the entire Barren Land Bazaar is now in chaos because of you. Even if you secretly make a move, no one might notice. Moreover, from the current signs, Celestial Master Zhang and Windy will be busy and won't have time to pay attention to you. What could possibly happen to them? Isn't it just the seal we opened earlier?" The first one, Theodosius I's tomb, wasn't the seal they consciously opened. But the second seal, the sevenfold door in the sewer, was definitely related to them. "Do you know what's going on with those 2 seals?" "No, but it's probably not a small matter. Whatever, let's not care about them. I'll go see how my men are doing. I saw them on my way here. I think they got into a fight with another team." "Did they win or lose?" Chen Zhao asked immediately. "They're about the same in power." "I don't think there'll be a winner," Bifla said. Bifla said, "I'll wait for you here. Go take a look at your team, and then come find me." "Why?" Chen Zhao asked. "We don't have to work together. I found the 3rd seal." Are you sure you don't want to take a look? You're not thinking of breaking the third seal, are you? Do you think Zhang isn't busy enough? I'm not planning on breaking the seal. I just want to see if I can help. Even if Bifla said it openly, Chen Zhao didn't think that Bifla was really going to help. Chen Zhao's most optimistic guess was that Bifla was just watching. Would he help solve the problem? If it didn't involve him, he wouldn't help. Chen Zhao had seen through Bifla long ago. Bifla was the same type of person as him. He wouldn't care about things that didn't concern him. If I have time, I'll think about coming and meeting you. With that, Chen Zhao turned and left. Chen Zhao was rather fast. He went in the direction Bifla pointed. In a few minutes, he sensed a few familiar presences. When Chen Zhao found the Supernatural Organizations team, they were fighting with another team. To be honest, in the past, Chen Zhao had always thought that his team was already the top. But in the Battle of Holy Glory, he'd seen too many outstanding teams and genius spiritualists. The Supernatural Organizations team didn't have a clear advantage among them. Even Gaia, who was the most powerful of the 10, didn't stand out here. There were too many geniuses here. Chen Zhao watched the battle between the two teams. If it was just a battle like this, Chen Zhao wouldn't help no matter who won. He didn't bring his team here to help them win. Instead, he wanted to prove their strength. Gaia had already transformed into a dragon. Her opponent was a spiritualist with the bloodline of a magical beast, a hill giant. In terms of size, Gaia's infant draconic dragon was clearly inferior to his opponent's hill giant. But Gaia wasn't without an advantage. She could fly. Her opponent couldn't compare. Chen Zhao looked at the other side of the battlefield. Jalanash and another elementalist were fighting. Their magic systems were similar. Their elements were similar too. Their magic power was similar too. So, it was hard to tell who would win. Both were like magic cannons. They kept shooting spells at each other from a distance. Looks like my worries were unnecessary, Chen Zhao murmured. They can already take care of themselves. Chapter 22:59. Just as the two sides were fighting fiercely, a third team entered the fray. Let's go. There's a bunch of terrifying guys. The third team was not here to start a fight. They were running for their lives, with hundreds of wraiths following behind them. The hundreds of wraiths were not to be underestimated. Each of them was extremely ferocious. If it were an ordinary spiritualist, a few of them would probably be able to take down one of them. If it were these top-notch spiritualists, each of them could deal with a dozen of them. But no matter how strong they were, they could not deal with hundreds of them at the same time. These wraiths were mixed together because they were similar in strength. Their remaining IQ allowed them to understand that if they fought alone, they would most likely be annihilated. This was the wolf effect of living creatures. If an individual's strength was not enough to ensure their safety, they would choose to gather together. When the external threat disappeared, they would start killing each other again. Quantitative change led to qualitative change. This applied to wraiths as well. When they approached, the two teams could not help but stop fighting. Everyone had a solemn expression. In an instant, everyone was swaying in the torrent formed by the wraiths. No one could face such a large number of wraiths alone. It could be said that with such a large number of wraiths, it was not impossible to block them if one had prepared a defensive line in advance and had a certain level of strength. But now they were completely unprepared, and it came so suddenly. When faced with a large number of wraiths, they were all flustered. With Gaia's fiery temper, she directly spewed a dragon's breath at the wraiths in her young dragon form. The dragon's breath directly ignited more than 10 wraiths, who wailed and screamed in pain. But Gaia's attack did not bring about any strategic results. Instead, it attracted more wraiths to attack. Those wraiths directly pounced on Gaia. 1, 2, 3. In the beginning, Gaia could still directly flap her wings and limbs to slap the evil wraiths away. But as more and more wraiths came, she was unable to withstand them and was directly pushed to the ground. The wraiths frantically tore at her body. Just then, Norma's reinforcements arrived. A nightmare beast stepping on green flames stepped on the air and came over. This nightmare beast with green flames was Norma's transformation. The hellfire burning on its body made it difficult for the vengeful spirits to approach. When a shapeshifter landed beside Gaia, it stomped its front hooves heavily on the ground, and a circle of green flames spread out. It ignited the vengeful spirits on Gaia's body and forced the surrounding vengeful spirits away. However, the nightmare that Norma had transformed into wasn't invincible. She had to consume a lot of magic power to maintain the burning of hellfire. Fortunately, at this time, the others also came over. They had all gathered here after killing their way out of the encirclement. Although the 10 of them had formed a temporary battle line in a panic, they were still able to hold their ground. However, they were teammates to begin with. They knew each other's strength and fighting style. Therefore, their teamwork was quite skillful. At the very least, it was much easier than when they fought alone. Chun Zhao observed in the dark. Just now, he could not help but want to make a move. Fortunately, they all persevered. The front line formed by the 10 of them was slowly breaking away from the vengeful spirits. These vengeful spirits also bullied the weak and feared the strong. Sensing that the supernatural organization was not easy to deal with, he immediately changed his target. The people from the supernatural organization weren't kind enough to save their former enemy. They quickly left the Wraith battlefield and escaped. However, the other team and the team that had escaped didn't fight for long either. The vengeful spirits' main target didn't seem to be them. They seemed to be gathering in a certain area. It wasn't just this group. In the distance, another group of vengeful spirits was also heading in that direction. Chun Zhao thought for a moment and then looked at the supernatural organization's team. It seemed that they had improved a lot. Of course, this improvement wasn't just in strength. In addition, their combat experience and their coordination had been greatly improved. It seemed that they could at least ensure their own safety. Chun Zhao also relaxed a little. He'd only planned to come and see their current situation. The information he'd gotten was good, so he didn't need to pay attention all the time. This battle of the Holy Glory was far more exciting than he'd imagined. Many spiritualists with ulterior motives had snuck in. Each of them had their own plans here. Some were just playing small games. Others weren't born to keep a low profile. Suddenly, Bifla appeared beside Chun Zhao. "You followed me?" Chun Zhao turned his head and glanced at Bifla. "No, I knew you'd go this way. I thought of it on the spur of the moment." "How could you guess?" "You're like me. We're afraid of trouble and like to watch." "Who's like you?" Chun Zhao's face darkened, and he ignored Bifla. "Do you know what's attracting these vengeful spirits?" Bifla asked. "No." Chun Zhao sounded nonchalant, but he was secretly spreading out his domain. He wanted to find out what was ahead. Soon, Chun Zhao discovered a huge object. It couldn't be called a living thing because it wasn't an organism in the common sense. It was a huge stone beast. It was more than 200 meters tall and weighed more than 100,000 tons. It clearly wasn't an ordinary beast or a magical beast, but it wasn't a puppet or an artificial being either. It couldn't be controlled by others. It had its own soul. From its appearance, it looked like a huge wild boar. It was the one that had attracted countless vengeful spirits. After it attracted the vengeful spirits, it would use its nose to sniff them. Then it would absorb large amounts of vengeful spirits. Where did this thing come from? How come I didn't notice it before? Bifla couldn't figure it out either. With their senses, there was no reason they couldn't notice such a huge stone beast. Most spiritualists couldn't do anything to this kind of super monster. But the stone beast wasn't interested in the nearby spiritualists. It was only interested in vengeful spirits. It moved at a seemingly slow speed. At the same time, it hummed. Just then, Zhang Tianyi and Wendy arrived. Zhang Tianyi's expression was serious. "Wendy, what's going on?" The Eye of the Seal of Autumn is called the Suppressor. It used to maintain its power by sacrificing souls and then maintain the seal for a long time. But in the past 200 years, because of the information gap, it hasn't received any sacrifices. Now, it's awakened by the large amount of vengeful spirits outside. Chapter 2260. In other words, the suppressor is the seal itself? Zhang Tianyi asked. "We don't have to attack it. It won't attack the living, but it can't go too far away from the seal," Wendy said with a serious expression. Wendy said with a serious expression, "It is now moving away from the sealed land. I now understand the intentions of the 10 villains. They deliberately released so many vengeful spirits to wake up the suppressor and then lure it away from the sealed land." Zhang Tianyi also thought of this possibility. Perhaps even Sai himself did not expect that his death would accidentally trigger this situation. He had died a worthy death. As the leader of the 10 villains, he died in Chun Zhao's hands before he could even be used. He felt wronged. If he hadn't attacked Chen Zhao first, he would have died. If he hadn't attacked Chen Zhao first, Chen Zhao might not have killed him first. At the same time, AI, Nancy, and the others in another direction were also surprised. They'd found Sickle this time, so that he could use the vengeful spirits he was best at to lure the suppressor out, and then lure it out of the seal. They didn't expect Sickle to still be able to use his original abilities after his death. I didn't expect Sickle's death to have such an effect. A relieved smile appeared on AI Nancy's face. Sickle wasn't their leader. In fact, they weren't even partners. Sickle was actually hired by them, like Nightmare Leopard, who was ranked 7th among the 10 villains. To put it bluntly, Sickle was just a flag. But Sickle's death still caused a huge loophole in their plan. They'd thought that their plan was going to fail. They didn't expect that even though Sickle was dead, the vengeful spirits he'd controlled still completed his mission. Now, Wendy and Zhang Tianyi had a headache. Stop the suppressor? That would be the same as attacking it. The suppressor wouldn't attack the living, but that didn't mean it was a good kid. Zhang Tianyi evaluated the suppressor's strength. Very strong, but that was it. If they really fought, he was confident that he could blast this 100,000-ton beast into pieces within 10 minutes. But the problem now was that the suppressor was the key to the seal. If he killed it, it would be equivalent to personally undoing the seal. But if he ignored it, it wouldn't attack the living. However, it would be attracted by the vengeful spirit and leave the area of the seal. Once it left the range of the seal, it would be no different from breaking the seal. Wind, do you have a way to restrain its actions without killing it? It can't be helped. As the core of the Seal of Autumn, the suppressor is immune to most spells and binding spells. In other words, we can only fight it head-on. Yes. Wanda nodded solemnly. I'll try and see if I can drive it back, Zhang Tianyi said. He did not have much confidence. If this was a magical beast that was afraid of death, Zhang Tianyi could use his unparalleled strength to directly threaten it. However, the suppressor was different. It was not a magical beast. At the same time, it was not a living being. It had a soul but no feelings. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi wasn't sure if he could scare it. Zhang Tianyi's figure moved and floated down in front of the suppressor. Suppressor, return to your post. You shouldn't leave your post, Zhang Tianyi said righteously, but the only response he got was the suppressor's giant claw. The suppressor wasn't attacking him, it was just walking normally. Seeing that he couldn't communicate with the suppressor, Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. Seems like I can only take action. Purple cloud lightning, archaic sword. A bolt of purple lightning descended from the sky and landed in front of Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi reached out and grabbed. The purple lightning turned into a purple sword. Zhang Tianyi touched the purple sword. The sword's edge shone with a purple luster. The suppressor saw Zhang Tianyi's imposing aura and opened its mouth to spit out a blue torrent at Zhang Tianyi. The suppressor devoured countless vengeful spirits, and what it released was also a soul attack. However, it was different from the scythe, which could only use the basic vengeful spirit charge. The blue torrent that the suppressor spat out was a high-level torrent of souls. Its power was incomparable to a normal vengeful spirit charge. Zhang Tianyi saw the torrent coming straight at him, but he didn't dodge. He swung the purple sword in a circle, formed a hand seal, and pointed at the torrent of souls. The purple sword released a purple bolt of lightning and directly collided with the torrent of souls. In an instant, a purple and blue ring of light exploded in the sky. The rainbow light was more dazzling than any magic spell. The surrounding teams that had been attracted by the vengeful spirits and the suppressor's huge body were all mesmerized by the dazzling rainbow light. It was powerful and dazzling, frightening and dispiriting. The torrent of souls was crushed by the purple lightning. However, the purple lightning didn't stop. It still charged at the suppressor with unstoppable power. Boom! With a loud sound, the purple lightning struck the suppressor's head. The suppressor was instantly knocked to the ground. The moment the huge body fell, the impact produced directly shook the entire street into ruins. But soon, the suppressor stood up again. Old Zhang is indeed strong. Chun Zhao watched Zhang Tianyi and the suppressor fight from afar. It was his first time seeing Zhang Tianyi fight so seriously. He used at least half of his strength. Even Chun Zhao wasn't sure that he could take that attack unscathed. The purple lightning seemed to be a lightning spell, but Chun Zhao vaguely felt danger. Anyway, Chun Zhao didn't dare to take that attack head-on with his body. Moreover, the old man definitely hadn't used his full strength. Chun Zhao felt that if he did, he really wouldn't be able to take one attack. Of course, Chun Zhao was sure that old Zhang wouldn't be able to take one of his punches either. Zhang Tianyi didn't know that Chun Zhao was nearby, nor did he know what Chun Zhao was thinking. Gray Style 9 Techniques, Demon Vanquishing 1,000 Tricks. Zhang Tianyi used another technique. He casually tossed the purple sword, and it turned back into purple lightning. Then, the purple lightning turned into a huge Dharma. It didn't seem real, but it was filled with majesty. The Dharma held one hand in front of its chest and raised the other in a slashing posture. Break! The Dharma's right arm chopped down vertically. Hiss! In an instant, the ground was torn apart, and the cracks extended for thousands of meters. So strong, Chun Zhao exclaimed. Bifla nodded with a serious expression. Bifla was also a sect leader. In the past, Bifla hadn't even reached Shangqing state. Now, he was also a Shangqing state master, but the difference between him and Zhang Tianyi wasn't that big. Zhang Tianyi really had a lot to brag about. Chapter 2261. As the publicly recognized top human expert in the supernatural world, Zhang Tianyi's strength didn't need to be recognized by others. But not many people had actually seen him fight. There were many people who had witnessed this battle, but those lucky enough to see it were also in danger. Not everyone had the right to watch the battle between Zhang Tianyi and the suppressor. The battle between the two was like a raging fire. Even Chun Zhao and Bifla were amazed by the scene. They were amazed by Zhang Tianyi's strength. Even if Zhang Tianyi didn't use his full strength, it was still shocking. Although Zhang Tianyi had displayed a powerful and overwhelming strength, it was not enough to stop him. But he was facing an opponent that didn't know fear or pain. The suppressor wasn't afraid of Zhang Tianyi at all. Even though it was forced to retreat, it still attacked Zhang Tianyi without hesitation. Celestial Master Zhang, it absorbed a lot of vengeful spirits. As long as the spiritual power isn't used up, it'll keep fighting, Wendy reminded Zhang Tianyi from afar. Zhang Tianyi had a headache. He'd seen many enemies like this. It claimed that it wouldn't fall as long as it had power. In fact, it wasn't hard to kill it before its power was used up. There was a very simple way, and that was to shatter one's bones. Zhang Tianyi happened to know many ways to achieve this goal, but he couldn't do that to the suppressor. This was what gave him the biggest headache. Bifla, if it were you, how would you deal with that big monster? Celestial Master Zhang doesn't seem to want to kill the monster. He probably just wants to stop it. If it were me, I could only destroy it at most, not stop it. Bifla glanced at Chun Zhao. This should be the enemy you're best at dealing with, right? Indeed, Chun Zhao didn't deny this. He liked to deal with enemies that focused on physical attacks the most. But he wouldn't attack. What happened here had nothing to do with him. Bifla thought the same. He could watch, but he couldn't look for trouble. Under Zhang Tianyi's powerful attacks, the suppressor still moved freely. No matter how Zhang Tianyi destroyed its rock-like shell, it would recover in a short time. There were too many vengeful spirits for it to absorb and devour. Zhang Tianyi's attack didn't slow it down for long. The suppressor was already at the edge of the seal's range. Zhang Tianyi shouted, "1,000 tricks vanquishes the devil." Zhang Tianyi's Dharma power condensed again, and he shouted again, "Shoulder throw." The Dharma idol grabbed suppressor and threw him over his shoulder. The 100,000-ton body of the suppressor crashed into the ground several hundred meters away. The earth was shaking, and even the space of the entire wasteland market was shaking. Everyone was dumbfounded by the fall. Bifla, have you watched Ultraman? The current scene looked like Ultraman beating up a small monster. Zhang Tianyi was also panting heavily. He was forced to use the Dharma idol of heaven and earth as a wrestling technique. The Dharma idol of heaven and earth could be used for physical attacks. However, the heaven and earth Dharma idol only had a physical form, so the power of the spells released through the heaven and earth Dharma idol could increase by several times or even dozens of times. However, if one were to use the aspect of heaven and earth to launch a physical attack, it would consume several times the caster's magic power. Zhang Tianyi was in the enchanting realm. Even if he used the heaven and earth avatar to wrestle, his magic power would recover quickly. However, the consumption was greater than the recovery. It was like a long-range attacker fighting close combat with someone else. Zhang Tianyi was a standard long-range attacker. It wasn't that he didn't know how to fight close combat, but that his level was lowered by several levels. Even so, he could still use the Dharma idol to suppress the suppressor. From this, one could see how terrifying his true strength was. As a pure melee fighter, Chun Zhao was also astonished when he saw Zhang's move. In terms of effect, Chun Zhao could do it too. With his strength, throwing the suppressor over his shoulder was a piece of cake for him. Even if the suppressor was 10 times heavier, he could still do it. However, Zhang Tianyi was clearly different. Everyone had their own specialties. Zhang Tianyi and Chun Zhao were two extreme examples. Of course, the two of them also had certain achievements in other fields. However, they were still weak. When the suppressor got up again, Zhang Tianyi used the Dharma idol to throw it over his shoulder again. He threw it back to the center of the seal. Zhang Tianyi panted even more and mumbled, "I can't do this. If this continues, I'll really die. If only that bastard Chun Zhao was here. He wouldn't have to go through so much trouble." Wait, Chun Zhao was in the desolate market now. He'd caused such a big commotion here. There was no reason for him not to come and watch. Zhang Tianyi floated in the air and suddenly made a hand seal. Heavenly Eye. Instantly, a vertical eye split open in the wrinkles between Zhang Tianyi's brows. This Heavenly Eye was a rather common spell in the Huaxia supernatural world. However, Zhang Tianyi's Heavenly Eye was an advanced version. Normal Heavenly Eye wouldn't open the Heavenly Eye. They could only see a trace of karma. However, Zhang Tianyi's Heavenly Eye directly opened the third Heavenly Eye. Through the amount of magical power used, he could see the result he wanted to see directly. However, it wasn't easy to find Chun Zhao. After all, Chun Zhao wasn't weaker than him. In terms of magical power alone, Chun Zhao was stronger. Zhang Tianyi immediately felt his magical power depleting rapidly. But an instant later, he saw Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao wasn't far from him, and the desolate market wasn't big. Although Zhang Tianyi's consumption was great, it wasn't as great as he'd imagined. If this was the outside world, Zhang Tianyi would probably lose half his life to use the Heavenly Eye to find Chun Zhao. Fuck, this bastard is really watching. Zhang Tianyi cursed as he looked at the suppressor who'd stood up again. Outside the battlefield, Chun Zhao also felt Zhang Tianyi's actions. "We've been discovered. Let's go." "That old man wants a scapegoat," Chun Zhao said. "We can't leave." Bifla shook his head. "Can he stop me if I want to leave?" Chun Zhao didn't believe it, but the next moment, he had to believe it. In the distance, Zhang Tianyi cast another spell. "Borrow the power of heaven and earth. Move the stars. Come here." Whoosh! Instantly, Chun Zhao felt the world spin, and he disappeared from Bifla's sight. When he looked again, he realized he'd appeared in the middle of the battlefield. Zhang Tianyi was gone. It was only the suppressor before him. "Celestial Master, hello." Bifla looked at Zhang Tianyi, who'd suddenly switched places with Chun Zhao, and bowed respectfully. "Hey, Bifla, I haven't seen you in a few days, and you've actually broken through the last step. You must have learned it from that kid, right?" "Yes. Thank you for your guidance, Celestial Master." Bifla nodded with a smile. "Old man, you're not very kind. Since I gave you some pointers, You should return the favor no matter what. Why don't you come over and help me out while I'm fighting so hard? Zhang Tianyi said indignantly. Didn't you already pull Chun Zhao in the battlefield? That's not because of your help. It's because I'm more skilled. But Celestial Master, you seem to have forgotten to tell him to go easy. Chapter 2262. Oh no. Zhang Tianyi felt like his head was going to explode. He turned around and charged toward Chun Zhao and the suppressor. The distance was not far, probably less than a kilometer. At this moment, Zhang Tianyi in the bliss world felt an unprecedented distance. Chun Zhao had also recovered from the shock. He also saw Zhang Tianyi hurriedly turning around. Chun Zhao opened his mouth in Zhang Tianyi's direction. Zhang Tianyi couldn't hear Chun Zhao's words, but he could still read Chun Zhao's lips. You want me to be your fighter, right? Then I'll do as you wish. Chun Zhao turned to look at the suppressor. Dark assimilation. Instantly, Chun Zhao's body was covered in a layer of darkness. Both Chun Zhao and Bifla could tell that Zhang Tianyi had been showing mercy to the suppressor. Given Zhang Tianyi's strength, the suppressor would have been slain long ago. Therefore, after fighting for so long, it wasn't that Zhang Tianyi couldn't kill the suppressor, but that he couldn't. However, it was a limitation for Zhang Tianyi. But there were no restrictions on Chun Zhao. Zhang Tianyi didn't even have time to be proud of himself. At this moment, he was already filled with regret. He really shouldn't have pulled Chun Zhao into his possession so recklessly. Chun Zhao wasn't him. Chun Zhao had no sense of responsibility or civility. It was simply a daydream to hope that he would accommodate her. Zhang Tianyi was already halfway there, but he stopped in the next moment, because he knew it was too late. Chun Zhao had already made his move. Go to hell. Terrifying power burst out from Chun Zhao's body. With unparalleled might, it poured into the body of the suppressor. It started from the suppressor's head and spread to his entire body. The suppressor was instantly destroyed and obliterated. Chun Zhao, do you know what you did? Didn't you want me to kill this big monster? Chun Zhao pretended to be confused. If I wanted to kill it, would I need you? Zhang Tianyi criticized Chun Zhao indignantly. The most hateful thing was that Chun Zhao clearly knew everything, but he had to play dumb in front of her. You didn't tell me anything. Are you blind? Chun Zhao's face darkened. Don't take advantage of your seniority. Zhang Tianyi was stunned for a moment, his face flushed with anger. Unfortunately, he didn't have a position to take now. He had forcefully dragged Chun Zhao into the battlefield without discussing it with him. This old man is a magnanimous person. I won't argue with you. Zhang Tianyi snorted stubbornly and turned to leave. More importantly, he couldn't do anything to Chun Zhao. Fight with Chun Zhao. The best outcome would be a lose-lose situation. The worst result was that he would be hung up and beaten. Zhang Tianyi knew his own strength, but he also knew how strong Chun Zhao was. That was why he wasn't confident. In particular, Chun Zhao's boundless vitality and almost unbreakable defense were especially strong. All of Zhang Tianyi's attacks were halved. Zhang Tianyi had also thought about how to deal with Chun Zhao if they fought. After much thought, the best way to deal with Chun Zhao was to seal him. However, a human seal was too difficult. Sealing had a tendency. If it was sealing an enemy of a certain attribute, the effect would be very good. For example, an enemy of the darkness or holy attribute could be sealed for hundreds or even thousands of years. However, humans were neutral. They could be dark, or they could be holy. Therefore, the tendency of sealing spells would be greatly reduced. The effect of sealing other species for 100 years might only be a few years or decades for humans. If it was a normal person or Tongliao City, they would starve to death after a few years. But Zhang Tianyi was very sure that it was useless against Chun Zhao. Perhaps Chun Zhao would starve in the seal, but he definitely wouldn't starve to death. When Chun Zhao came out of the seal, it would be a great disaster for Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi knew that he couldn't outlive Chun Zhao. With his junior strength and potential, he basically couldn't beat Chun Zhao. Therefore, Zhang Tianyi really didn't want to turn against Chun Zhao. Of course, Chun Zhao didn't want to turn against Zhang Tianyi either. The old man had too many dirty tricks. Who knew when he would be tricked? They were both wary of each other. Just then, a majestic pillar of light suddenly shot out from the huge pit where the suppressor had been hiding. The pillar of light soared into the sky, and surging energy poured out from the seal. Three seals have been opened. AI Nancy and the others were very excited. There was only one seal left. Their plan was unfolding in a way that exceeded their expectations, but they were unexpectedly back to square one. Theodosius' Eye's tomb, the sevenfold door in the sewers, and the almost invincible suppressor. AI Nancy, don't you think it's strange? Opening each seal is part of our plan, but the process of opening each seal deviates from our plan, the Black Soul said. AI Nancy, who had been very excited a moment ago, fell into silence the next moment. The current situation seemed to have reached their expectations, but the process was rather strange. One accident, two accidents, and the third was still an accident. With so many accidents added together, it wasn't an accident anymore. What are you trying to say? There's someone or a group of people who know our entire plan. They're using our plan to carry out their own plan. Their goal is very likely to also open the seal and obtain God's remains. You're saying that we have competitors? Maybe it's even worse, the Black Soul said. The Black Soul said, even we wouldn't dare to plot against Celestial Master Zhang, but the other party's plan included Celestial Master Zhang. They're either ignorant and fearless, or they have the confidence to do so. Moreover, we're still in the open. Then what should we do? AI Nancy turned to look at the Black Soul. The joy he had felt before had completely vanished. AI Nancy didn't like this feeling. She didn't like being used and manipulated. There are two choices. One is to continue with the plan and wait until the fourth seal is opened so that we can obtain God's remains first. The second choice is to give up all the plans and sabotage the operation. The other party may be stronger than us. Perhaps all our actions are being watched by the other party. Instead of being manipulated by others, it's better to directly sabotage the entire plan. If we can't get it, we won't let the other party get it. No, AI Nancy immediately rejected. I've been lurking around Wind for so many years, and the implementation of the plan is now nearing its end. You want me to give up the plan? I don't have that much time to waste. And so far, all the guesses are just your guesses. They haven't been confirmed yet. Chapter 2263. Zhang Tianyi was pissed. Chen Zhao was even more pissed. He'd been dragged into the battle for no reason. However, he vaguely sensed an unusual aura. As for where this feeling came from, he couldn't say either. Bifla greeted Zhang Tianyi from afar and then left with Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao, what's wrong? Still mad at Celestial Master Zhang? No, I don't know if it's my imagination, but I feel something weird. We're both spiritualists. If we can feel it, then it can't be an illusion, Bifla said. What did you feel? I can't tell. I just feel that it's not coordinated, but I can't tell what it is. That's normal. Spiritualists are very sensitive, but some senses are just flashes of light, so it's hard to explain what it means. Then how can I be sure of what I feel? I can't help you with that. I feel that it's too mysterious. Also, it's up to the person to capture the flash of light. Others can't help either. Is there no way at all? I can't, but I don't know if Celestial Master Zhang has a way. Chen Zhao was a prideful person. He definitely wouldn't turn around and ask Zhang Tianyi for help. Celestial Master, what's wrong? Is it because that person killed the suppressor? When he looked at Zhang Tianyi, who had a serious expression, he'd seen the argument and conflict just now. That person had come with Bifla, and he knew Zhang Tianyi. It should be the Chen Zhao mentioned before, that terrifyingly powerful man. And he'd indeed displayed unparalleled power. Other than Zhang Tianyi, he'd never met anyone who could kill the suppressor in one move. But that person had done it. That kind of domineering power was something he'd never seen before. No, Zhang Tianyi shook his head. It's because I suddenly lost my mind. What do you mean? When he asked, confused. I know that bastard Chen Zhao too well, Zhang Tianyi said. No matter what, I would never drag him into the battle when I'm facing an enemy I can't kill. But that's exactly what I did just now. Wenda frowned. You mean, you're being controlled? Not control, but left and right. I don't understand. Is there anyone in this world who can control your mind? You may not have encountered some strange spells. Some spells are hard to detect, extremely difficult to defend against, or even impossible to defend against, and I suspect that I was hit by such a spell. What spell? Even you're unable to defend against it. In China, there is a system called the deadly occult door. Zhang Tianyi said, taking life doesn't mean killing or taking more of your life, but controlling your actions and controlling your fate. You're talking about the puppet technique, right? How could you be affected by the puppet technique? Of course, it's not the puppet technique. The puppet technique is not even worth mentioning when compared to this life-taking technique. Zhang Tianyi paused. Everyone's words, actions, and decisions are similar to throwing darts. Whatever your dart hits on the target, you will react accordingly. The difference is that some actions have a larger area on the target, while some actions have a smaller area on the target. Do you understand what I'm saying? Wanda nodded. Zhang Tianyi's explanation was easy to understand. Plus, he was quick-witted, so he easily understood Zhang Tianyi's meaning. But this life-taking technique expands the target area that originally represented a small probability action into a high probability action. Wanda's eyes widened in surprise. Even for a veteran of the supernatural world like him, this was the first time he had heard of such a strange, or even strange spell. Celestial Master, you mean someone cast a spell on you? I'm not sure right now, Zhang Tianyi said. Logically, I wouldn't make such a mistake, but I just had to do such a stupid thing, so I can't help but suspect that I was hit by this spell. I still find it a little hard to believe. Does that mean that once you master this spell, you can do whatever you want? Wanda shuddered at the thought of the consequences. If the other party controlled Zhang Tianyi and killed him, or committed some heinous crime, who could stop them? Zhang Tianyi rubbed his forehead. It's not as scary as you think. First of all, this kind of spell has certain requirements for the caster. Secondly, it can't be detected. Moreover, when this kind of spell is used on you and me, the effect is greatly reduced. Moreover, it needs to make use of a small, almost negligible possibility in my heart. Even if this possibility is expanded, it will almost never happen. But it can still happen, right? For example, because I had a dispute with you in the past and then wanted to kill you at a certain moment, it just happened to be used by my enemy to increase this possibility. It was originally a 1 in a million possibility, but then it was doubled by the other party, becoming a 1 in 500,000 possibility. Do you need to worry about this probability? Have we had a dispute before? How come I don't remember? Celestial Master Zhang, I've always admired you very much, Wanda said hurriedly, as if Zhang Tianyi really could kill him. Zhang Tianyi rolled his eyes. Okay, enough nonsense. Now I need to confirm whether I really was hit by this spell or not. How can you be sure? Asked Wanda. He didn't have any good ideas in this regard. After all, this was the first time he had heard of this kind of spell. Just thinking about it made him feel scared. Do you have chicken blood, cat whiskers, cow's eyeballs, and sheep's dung in your lap? Wanda still didn't understand. These are all low-level materials. The so-called low-grade materials were things that could be easily obtained by ordinary people. There was no difficulty in obtaining them. However, these low-level materials could only be used to cast the most basic and common spells. In his opinion, Zhang Tianyi wouldn't use those low-level spells. In his opinion, Zhang Tianyi would only use those kinds of high-level and difficult spells. He couldn't possibly use those low-level spells. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Wanda's expression and more or less guessed what he was thinking. For me, there's no such thing as high or low spells, only useful and useless spells. For example, the spell I'm going to use, Nurturing. Nurturing? What a strange name. This spell not only has a strange name, but its effect is also very strange. It can make people lose their desire for an instant. Of course, it can instantly calm them down, but it can only last for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, the effect will disappear. Wanda's face was full of confusion. The effect of this spell was indeed strange, and could even be said to be meaningless. And the duration was also very short. What was the use of this spell? And what did it have to do with Zhang Tianyi's current situation? Chapter 2264. This nurturing technique is also known as the heaven nurturing technique. It's originally used to concentrate and calm one's chi and consolidate one's foundation. Basically, it's used on ordinary people. Of course, it can also be used on spirit controllers, but it's meaningless for spirit controllers. Zhang Tianyi said, however, there's another characteristic of nurturing. The user can't have any traces of other spells on their body. In game terms, as long as there's a buff on the body, no matter if it's a buff or a debuff, nurturing can't coexist. Hearing Zhang Tianyi's explanation, Wanda finally understood. However, although the effect of this nurturing spell was weak, its conditions were very overbearing. In layman's terms, the human body was a computer, and these spells were the software. However, to install the nurturing spell software, all other software had to be uninstalled. Of course, it didn't matter to ordinary people, because ordinary people wouldn't have any buffs on their bodies. However, many spiritualists would habitually apply some buffs on their bodies. These buffs were all compatible. There was no rule that one couldn't apply another after being applied. When they returned to Wanda's laboratory, Kelly and Evelyn were waiting there. They wanted to go out with Zhang Tianyi and Wanda. However, because of the urgency of the situation, Zhang Tianyi and Wanda didn't have time to drag their feet, and they didn't dare to go out alone. The wasteland market outside was too dangerous for them. Therefore, they could only stay in a laboratory. However, Wanda didn't restrict their movements. In a laboratory, they could go anywhere they wanted. However, they found some fun here. They found a surveillance room. This surveillance room didn't monitor the building they were in, but the entire wasteland market. Here, they could see the entire wasteland market and the battle scenes of all the participants of the Battle of Holy Glory. However, there were hundreds of thousands of surveillance scenes in the entire wasteland market. It wasn't easy for them to find the scenes they wanted to see. However, among the selected scenes, they still found the battle scenes of some of the Battle of Holy Glory participants. The battles of those spiritualists were refreshing and broadened their horizons. After Zhang Tianyi and Wanda returned, they immediately came to their side. They knew that they could only survive here if they were obedient. As for the thoughts of revenge they had at the beginning, they had long since disappeared. The more they came into contact with, the more their worldview collapsed. The assassin abilities that they were so proud of in the past did not give them any advantages, especially when facing a supreme existence like Zhang Tianyi. What they felt was powerlessness, humbleness, and insignificance. Zhang Tianyi's appearance was that of an old man. However, whenever an enemy that could threaten them appeared, he would transform into a godlike existence. They had never seen what a real god looked like, but in their eyes, Zhang Tianyi was a god. Wendy quickly prepared the spellcasting materials for Zhang Tianyi. Nurturing was not a difficult spell to begin with. It was a very low-level and simple spell. Wanda watched Zhang Tianyi cast the spell and instantly learned it. Zhang Tianyi cast the spell on himself and didn't cast it. I knew it. Zhang Tianyi raised his eyebrows. I really did get hit by the life-stealing strange door. Celestial Master, do you have a suspect? When he asked, Zhang Tianyi shook his head. This life-stealing strange door is treacherous and impossible to guard against. It's my first time seeing it, and I've only heard about it in the past. I don't even know the conditions to cast the spell and trigger it. So how can I have any clues? Nothing at all. I don't have any clues at the moment, but I'm sure that this spell only exists in Huaxia. Most spells or magic, be it in the East or the West, were similar or identical. However, a small portion of them were unique spells, and they were also isolated inheritances. Outsiders might not even have heard of them, let alone practice them. Zhang Tianyi's expression was solemn. An invisible enemy was in the dark. Not only that, but he was also able to make him fall for it without anyone noticing. Anyone else would not be able to relax. Then what do we do now? When he was also in a dilemma. To be honest, in terms of strength, he wasn't bad. He couldn't compare to Zhang Tianyi, but compared to most spiritualists in the world, he was still in awe of them. However, in terms of schemes, he was clearly powerless. He spent most of his thoughts and wisdom on alchemy, so he didn't have any ideas about schemes. Otherwise, Anise wouldn't have been hiding beside him for so many years without him noticing. What if Zhang Tianyi tried it? Not to mention a few years. He would probably know what color Anissa's underwear was after a few rounds of contact. Zhang Tianyi fell into deep thought. After a while, his lips curled into a smile. Done. You've thought of a way. Yes. Zhang Tianyi smiled. What do you need me to do? No need. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. Go to the surveillance room and find Chun Zhao. It's the guy you saw before. It wasn't easy to find one person among hundreds of thousands of surveillance images. So he had to ask Kelly and Evelyn to help. When he left, he was at this location. If he didn't run around randomly, he should be near this area. Search this area and its surroundings. That way, we can reduce the range. Zhang Tianyi couldn't confirm Chun Zhao's current location. After all, with Chun Zhao's abilities, he wouldn't even need a minute to go around the barren land bazaar. We found Bifla, but where's Chun Zhao? Where did he go? Zhang Tianyi found Bifla's tracks. He'd thought that Bifla and Chun Zhao would move together. In the end, Chun Zhao wasn't beside Bifla. At the moment, Bifla, who was in the surveillance room, had an idea. He gazed at the sky, a thoughtful expression on his face. The feeling of being monitored came very suddenly. In the surveillance room, Zhang Tianyi thought for a while. Continue looking for Chun Zhao. I'll be back soon. With that, Zhang Tianyi left the lab and went straight to Bifla's location. A while later, Zhang Tianyi arrived before Bifla. Celestial Master Zhang, were you monitoring me just now? Yes. Why isn't Chun Zhao beside you? Where'd he go? Zhang Tianyi asked. Chapter 2265. Hearing Zhang Tianyi's words, Bifla's expression suddenly turned strange. What's wrong? Don't tell me something happened to him. I don't believe that Astra Shoal would be in trouble. Zhang Tianyi said confidently. Plus, no one in this barren land can harm him. He's gone, Bifla said. What? Zhang Tianyi stared at Bifla, dumbfounded. What do you mean gone? He ran away? He didn't run away, Bifla said helplessly. He was probably summoned by someone or some spell. Actually, he was also very confused about this. Chun Zhao had disappeared beside him. He had seen the entire process, but he had no idea what spell it was or who had cast it. Forcefully summoning Chun Zhao away, one had to know that an existence like Chun Zhao would be a catastrophe if he was replaced by a magical beast or magical creature of the same level. The price to summon a magical creature of this level was also very high. It would probably take tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of blood sacrifices to summon a magical creature of Chun Zhao's level. Chun Zhao was a human. Unless he had a contract with someone, the price to summon him would be even higher. Of course, this was Bifla's conjecture before he knew Chun Zhao's true strength. Summon him away? Are you sure? Zhang Tianyi clearly didn't believe that Chun Zhao would be summoned away. I'm not sure, Bifla said. I'm confused too. Zhang Tianyi sank into deep thought. He knew Chun Zhao better than Bifla. He knew how powerful Chun Zhao was. Summon Chun Zhao? First, destroy a small country, then kill all the people there and sacrifice their lives. And this was under the premise that Chun Zhao accepted the contract. If it were some evil creature or demon, they would definitely be happy to accept the summon. But Chun Zhao wouldn't accept it. Therefore, the price to successfully summon Chun Zhao would be unimaginably high. Because Zhang Tianyi had been through this, he knew the rules of summoning like the back of his hand. That was why he had such an expression of disbelief. The most likely possibility was that he hadn't been summoned away. He had been teleported away. Did Chun Zhao do anything strange before he left? What do you mean? If it's a summoning, the price is too high. In the real world, no one can pay such a high price, so the only possibility is that he was teleported away. Zhang Tianyi said, to teleport Chun Zhao away, one needs to be very powerful. If the other party has the power to teleport Chun Zhao away, then they can fight him head-on. So, the most likely possibility is that Chun Zhao did something that meets the predetermined conditions and was teleported away by force. Bifla thought for a moment, and a strange expression appeared on his face again. We picked up a magic lamp on the road. Is this behavior strange? Zhang Tianyi also revealed a strange expression. Are you sure you're not joking with me? No, I'm serious. Bifla shrugged helplessly. We did pick up a magic lamp, but it's more like a magic tool. Chun Zhao even tried to rub the magic lamp to summon the genie, but there was no reaction. Then he filled the lamp with magic power. While Bifla's words were unimaginable, thinking about it carefully, this behavior and method suited Chun Zhao's personality. If Chun Zhao had picked up such a magic lamp, he wouldn't even consider if it was dangerous or a trap. He would definitely try to summon the genie. That magic lamp is strange, Zhang Tianyi said, frowning. I'm not sure if Chun Zhao being teleported away has nothing to do with the magic lamp. Zhang Tianyi opened the heavenly eye between his brows. After looking around, he said, Chun Zhao's aura still lingers in the barren town. This means that he's still in the barren town. He should be trapped somewhere now. There's a place that can trap him? Bifla was in disbelief. Maybe he's not willing to come out. Zhang Tianyi knew Chun Zhao too well. As long as he was interested in something, he would probably stay. Even if there was a flood outside, he wouldn't care. Also, there are many secrets here that even Winder doesn't know. He's really not responsible enough as a manager, Bifla said. At this moment, a team walked over. They first saw two figures before them, but they couldn't see who they were. So, their first reaction was to be on guard. The team approached them carefully. However, when they saw the two people standing there, especially Zhang Tianyi, everyone was stunned for a moment. Celestial Master? Bifla and Zhang Tianyi turned their heads to look at the team that had appeared before them. Zhang Tianyi's gaze fell on the magic lamp in one of their hands. Where did you get that? Zhang Tianyi asked, pointing at the person. Celestial Master, this is the trophy we got when we defeated a cypress beast. The person couldn't help but become nervous. Let me see, Zhang Tianyi said. The person hesitated, but in the end, he still held the magic lamp with both hands and handed it to Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi took the magic lamp and realized that it had already been injected with magic. You guys injected a lot of magic, right? Everyone's expression was somewhat awkward, because all 10 of them had tried to inject magic into the magic lamp. But they had only injected less than a quarter. Of course, one reason was that they hadn't used all their strength. After all, they were in the barren town and participating in the trial of the Battle of Holy Glory. If all their magic was injected, then they were likely to lose their combat effectiveness. Moreover, the amount of mana required for the magic lamp was simply too much. They couldn't pay too much to turn on this magic lamp when they weren't sure of the role of this magic lamp. That's why this magic lamp was in this state. About a quarter of their magic was injected, and they couldn't continue to inject it. And even if they said that all their magic was injected into it, they could only inject 3/4 of the full value at most, which was why they gave up on continuing. Zhang Tianyi directly injected his own magic power into it. The Chinese people called it magic power, and the Westerners called it magic power. In fact, they were essentially the same. The magic lamp that 10 people in the opposite team couldn't fill. Zhang Tianyi filled it directly in an instant. However, what Zhang Tianyi expected did not happen. Chapter 2266. Why isn't there a reaction? Zhang Tianyi turned his head and looked at Bifla. Bifla shrugged. I don't understand either. Celestial Master Zhang, bring the Qingjiang magic lamp to the lab. I'll study it. Winder contacted Zhang Tianyi through the communicator. Zhang Tianyi was helpless. His knowledge in this area was indeed far from Winder's. He brought it back to Winder's lab. Wendy immediately began to examine the magic lamp. How is it? Is there a result? This lamp can also be used to activate teleportation, but there's a condition. Only one mana source can be fully charged to activate the teleportation device. That's simple. Drain the mana you injected earlier and then inject it again. Don't tell me you can't do it. Of course, but it's not the only condition, Winder said. Wendy said, this is only the final device, not the only one. That is to say, before obtaining this magic lamp, other conditions need to be met. Can you deduce the required conditions? Winder shook his head. No, There's no pattern to these conditions, so I can't deduce them. Then can you activate the teleportation device in another way? Yes, but it needs time, Winder answered. How long? 3 to 5 days. I can't be sure yet. So, even the best result has to be after the second trial. Since I'm missing the previous conditions, I need to complete them in another way. 3 to 5 days is already the most optimistic estimate. Chen Zhao felt his body fall heavily onto the ground. His face was stuck to the smelly sewage on the ground. Chen Zhao wiped the water off his face. He didn't want to know what the sewage was made of. The air was hot and dry. There were many cracks on the ground. Faint red light flashed through the cracks. He seemed to be in the mouth of a volcano. The sky wasn't the sky either. Instead, it was a bottomless, hollowed-out rock layer above his head. There were also many cracks above his head. Lava or rocks fell from them every now and then. It looked like hell, but it wasn't hell. At first, when he'd been summoned, he'd thought that he'd been summoned by a friend from hell. But when he arrived, he realized that it wasn't hell. Chen Zhao kicked off and soared into the air. However, after making an arc in the air, it fell heavily to the ground. What's going on? You can't fly here? Chen Zhao was confused. Closing his eyes, he carefully sensed the surroundings and discovered that the heaven and earth spiritual energy here was extremely abundant. However, there seemed to be some sort of spiritual vortex in the air. Once he used his magic power to rise into the air, his magic power would cause a chain reaction with those spiritual vortexes, causing the balance of flight to be disrupted. What exactly is this place? Chen Zhao was even more confused. At this time, a few screams came from the sky. Then, a few figures descended from the sky. That scene was so familiar. He seemed to have fallen in the same way before. Those people were in a rather sorry state, and one of them seemed to have fallen quite heavily. After all, not everyone could take a fall. Those people were treating their companions. They were using holy light magic, which had outstanding healing effects. Soon, his companion's injuries were much better. One of the handsome blonde men turned his head and looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stood where he was. He didn't go far, but he didn't get close either. The blonde man walked toward Chen Zhao. Sir, hello. I'm Matthew from the church. Matthew reached out his hand to show his attitude. Chen Zhao also shook hands with Matthew. Hello. You can call me Chen. Can you explain the current situation? And where's this place? I'm afraid not, Chen Zhao said. I just arrived 3 minutes earlier than you guys. You don't know either? Unfortunately, I can't answer your question. Chen Zhao shrugged. But I picked up a magic lamp and filled it with magic to teleport here. You too? Us too. Matthew raised an eyebrow and couldn't help but look at Chen Zhao. Are you alone? Yes. Seeing that he couldn't get any more information from Chen Zhao, Matthew could only give up for now and start observing the surroundings. This looks like an independent space, Matthew said. No, Chen Zhao said. This isn't an independent space. It should be deep under Desolate Market. Oh, why? Chen Zhao thought so, because he could still vaguely feel Bifla's very faint aura. Judging from Bifla's aura, it should have sensed him too. However, they were too far away and separated by thick rock layers, so they couldn't accurately locate each other. But from all the information, they should be above ground or underground. However, they couldn't be sure how far away they were. With the range of their senses, the only place that could block their senses was probably 10,000 meters or even deeper underground. Also, some magic should be sealed here. Chen Zhao's senses were forced back bit by bit. In the end, he realized that his senses had completely disappeared. No, it wasn't completely disappeared. More accurately, he was forced to only sense about an inch around him. However, this was no different from completely disappearing. Mr. Chen, you're spacing out. Are you thinking about something? Matthew realized that Chen Zhao didn't answer his question. His expression also looked like his soul was wandering. Nothing. Chen Zhao shook his head. Mr. Chen, you haven't answered my question, Matthew said. We're both spiritualists. Why do you doubt my words? Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. Do I have to tell you my magic and principles? These words left Matthew speechless. However, Matthew was a good person and didn't get angry. Instead, he apologized. Sorry, I was rude. Chen Zhao glanced at Matthew. Are you also participants of the Battle of Holy Glory? Yes, Mr. Chun. You too? Are you a Lone Ranger? Sort of. Are there only 5 of you left in your team? No, the 5 of us were sent in. Our companions are still outside. For now, Chun Zhao didn't know the current situation. Of course, Matthew and his companions didn't know either. They'd all been summoned. Mr. Chun, do you know how to leave here? No, I don't know anything about this place. Chapter 2267. Orlando, go up and take a look at the surroundings, Matthew said to his companion. As he spoke, a young man about the same age as Matthew leaped into the air. Stunned, Chun Zhao stared at Altador in shock. He can fly? Matthew glanced at Chun Zhao. Is it strange? When you reach a certain level, flying isn't an unattainable dream. Matthew clearly misunderstood Chun Zhao. He thought Chun Zhao was a low-level spiritualist. Chun Zhao was speechless. Why was his flying ability the only one restricted? His senses also seemed to be suppressed by the environment here. What was going on? Matthew's group was clearly weaker than him, but they weren't suppressed. Why was he the only one being suppressed? Moreover, this suppression was from the environment here. It wasn't someone or something. This was the most depressing part for Chun Zhao. If everyone was suppressed together, Chun Zhao would feel better. Or if it was someone targeting him, Chun Zhao could accept it more easily. Chun Zhao rubbed his chin and looked at Orlando, who was flying at an altitude of around 100 meters. Didn't he feel the spiritual vortexes around him? But to Matthew, Chun Zhao's observation of Orlando in the sky was purely an envious look. Just then, a huge pressure descended from the sky and landed on Chun Zhao's head. Bang! Instantly, the ground Chun Zhao was standing on cracked. Matthew and the others jumped to the side in shock. Turning back to look at Chun Zhao, they realized that he was kneeling on the ground. His clothes were tattered and he looked very pathetic. There was a 3-meter-wide pit around him. Mr. Chun, are you okay? What happened just now? Chun Zhao stood up in a mess. His expression was terrible. He'd been targeted. The environment was targeting him. But why? Why was he being targeted by the environment? What was going on? Chun Zhao's aura started to grow stronger. But the next moment, an even more powerful force descended from the sky and hit Chun Zhao. Boom! Chun Zhao was smashed to the ground by this force. Chun Zhao's figure was imprinted on the originally thick and hard ground. Damn it, what the hell is going on? Matthew and the others looked at Chun Zhao as if he was the plague. They couldn't dodge in time. They didn't understand what was going on either. It was as if an invisible enemy was attacking him. But they didn't find any trace of the enemy. Chun Zhao raised his head and looked at the sky with a confused expression. He didn't sense anyone's hostility, but he was really being targeted. However, his shadow vision did not discover the enemy hidden in the shadows. If shadow vision didn't find anything, then there was most likely no real enemy. Right now, Chun Zhao could do nothing but curse. He didn't even know where the enemy was. This made Chun Zhao very uncomfortable. The more agitated Chun Zhao was, the more his power exploded uncontrollably. At the same time, an even more terrifying attack fell from the sky. Bang! The ground cracked, and Chun Zhao was smashed deep into the ground. Is that guy okay? How could he be fine? Even if that guy didn't die, he wouldn't have many breaths left. At this moment, a hand reached out from the pit. Chun Zhao climbed out of the pit with a sad expression. Looking at the sky, Chun Zhao had mixed feelings. It seemed that as long as he used his power, the attack from the heavens would descend. As for what was going on, he didn't know either. But as long as he held his breath and restrained his aura, the attack would stop. However, once his power exceeded that limit, the attack would descend again. That limit was slightly higher than the early stage of Shangqing. This meant that if a spiritualist in the early stage of Shangqing came here, he wouldn't be suppressed or attacked. If he exceeded this limit, the attack would descend continuously. Chun Zhao fell into deep thought. He didn't have any ideas for now. Mr. Chun, are you okay? Matthew asked Chun Zhao, who had climbed out of the pit. I'm fine. Chen Zhao's smile was bitter and helpless. It didn't feel good. If it was a real enemy, no matter how strong or weak the enemy was, Chen Zhao would at least know how to face it. But now, he didn't even know what was going on. Chen Zhao tried his best to calm himself down. If he got angry again, his power would soar again. That boundary might be a realm that others would never be able to touch. But for Chen Zhao now, it was too low. If he used a bit more strength, he would touch that limit. So, Chen Zhao had to carefully restrain his power. But Chen Zhao's restrained aura still looked very weak to Matthew. Chen Zhao's face was pale and his eyes were dim. It seemed that the attack he'd received earlier had seriously injured him. Chen Zhao let out a long breath. The attack just now had been very strong, but it hadn't really hurt Chen Zhao. But Chen Zhao could feel that it wasn't the strongest attack released by the world. If he continued to release his power, it was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be an even stronger attack or even harm him. Mr. Chen, everyone in our church knows some healing spells, Matthew said sincerely. Let me help you. Thank you. No need. Chen Zhao wasn't injured, so he didn't need healing. Plus, with his magic resistance, both buffs and debuffs weren't very effective on him. Unless Matthew used a super healing spell, it would be a waste of time and magic. Just then, Altador also landed from the sky. Altador first looked deeply at Chen Zhao and then walked to Matthew's side. Altador, how is it? Did you find anything? No, Altador answered. This place is very big, even bigger than the Desolate Market. The elements here are also very violent. Matthew, what do we do now? We know too little information, Matthew said helplessly. Even if you let me make a decision, I don't have any good ideas. For now, we can only choose one direction. With that, Matthew looked at Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, do you want to go together? Chen Zhao hadn't shown too much power. However, he'd taken a few strange attacks head-on, which was enough to show that he wasn't weak. Plus, Chen Zhao was injured, so Matthew felt that he could form a good relationship with him. For someone of his status, if there were no accidents, he would definitely have a high status in the future. Right now, he didn't just need to increase his power and level. He also needed to make connections for the future. Chapter 2268. Chen Zhao wasn't injured at all. However, the feeling of going from strong to weak made Chen Zhao feel very weak. It wasn't a physical feeling, but a psychological one. This also caused the others to think that Chen Zhao was injured when they saw him. Mr. Chen, do you really not need a holy light spell? It'll be very effective. Matthew had the intention to rope Chen Zhao in and befriend him. However, the church's teachings also taught him that he couldn't leave Chen Zhao in the lurch. Whether it was for business or personal reasons, Matthew hoped to help Chen Zhao. However, Chen Zhao didn't want to be healed by some holy light spell at all. Thank you for your kindness, but I'm not injured. I'm just weak, not injured, Chen Zhao replied weakly. Fine. Matthew nodded helplessly. If you really need it, tell me at any time. Chen Zhao shrugged. Actually, he'd always been in a good state. Matthew's group of 5 and Chen Zhao's group didn't have a specific destination. They just chose a direction. After walking for a while, they found an area filled with countless skeletons. The skeletons had completely covered the area. Looking over, they couldn't see the end of the sea of skeletons. Some of the skeletons belonged to humans, some belonged to other creatures, some were big, some were small. In the white sea of skeletons, there were also many weapons stuck in the bones. This place, Matthew frowned. He and his companions were all successors of the church. They all had the power of holy light. Therefore, they were very uncomfortable with this area filled with the aura of death. Chen Zhao didn't like this place either, mainly because it was uncomfortable to walk on the skeletons. Without a doubt, this used to be a charaba. Countless living beings fought and killed each other here. In the end, only piles of white bones were left. What exactly is this place? How many people are buried here? It was difficult to even count the number of races that had died here, let alone count the number of the dead. There were too many skeletons of various creatures. If a normal person stepped in here, they'd probably be scared to death. Just then, 10 people appeared in front of them. Those 10 people were obviously from the same team. When the team saw Chun Zhao's group, they immediately stopped. Both sides looked at each other. Neither side attacked blindly. Matthew was confident in his strength, but they were the minority after all. The other party's strength was unknown, and they clearly had the advantage in numbers. If they attacked rashly, they might suffer a great loss. Chun Zhao frowned and turned to look at Matthew. At this moment, Matthew and his companions were in high spirits. This confused Chun Zhao even more. Although he had only just met Matthew, they did not have much interaction. But in her mind, Matthew should be the kind of gentle and refined person. It was completely different from his current temperament. Why did he suddenly become so impulsive when he met the person opposite him? Matthew, what's affecting you? Chun Zhao reminded. Matthew was stunned for a moment, and then he came to his senses. It's the aura that permeates this place. Matthew's expression changed. Alterando, Fee, Paolo, Angie, calm down, Matthew reminded them. When everyone heard Matthew's magical voice, they also woke up from their manic and irritable emotions. Matthew glanced at Chun Zhao. Mr. Chun, thank you. Aren't you affected? I am, Chun Zhao said, but I still retain my rationality. Actually, it was not that he was completely unaffected. It was because Chun Zhao was personally observing the situation from a higher position. He did not see the 10 people as opponents, so he naturally did not have that high fighting spirit. Therefore, compared to the others, Chun Zhao could control his emotions better. He could also observe others from a bystander's perspective. However, Matthew and the others regained their rationality after Chun Zhao's reminder. But the 10 people opposite them did not get rid of their manic emotions so easily. Everyone, you're also participants of the Holy Glory, right? We better calm down now. Matthew recovered his usual calmness and gentleness. He tried to use his attitude to dissolve the other party's hostility and fighting spirit. Hesitation and awkwardness appeared on the faces of the 10 opponents. Their eyes were constantly changing, as if they were having an intense battle in their hearts. But just then, a red figure descended from the sky without any warning, landing directly in the center of the two parties. Amidst the scattered bone fragments and dust, a figure emerged from the path. It was a red-skinned man with a bare chest. His hair stretched back in a bold and vigorous manner. The man held a large axe in one hand and a large sword in the other. His red skin was very abnormal, but he was still human. The red-skinned man panted heavily and grinned. More newcomers. The two parties, who had slowly calmed down, were instantly filled with hostility again. Come, let's fight, the red-skinned man roared. The originally calm Matthew suddenly cast a holy spell. A lightsaber extended from his empty right hand. Purify that evil and unorthodox path. The frenzied battle intent seemed to be emanating from this red-skinned man. His appearance had caused Matthew to lose control. Right now, Matthew was like a Jedi in a star battle. He swung his lightsaber and charged at the red-skinned man. The red-skinned man raised his large sword and blocked Matthew's attack. Matthew somersaulted in the air and pointed his other hand at the red-skinned man. Judgment. A golden light suddenly appeared above the red-skinned man's head and fell straight down. Attacked from above, the red-skinned man knelt on one knee. Matthew steadied himself after the somersault and launched another consecutive spell attack. Judgment. The shadow of an angel holding a long sword appeared behind the red-skinned man. The sword pierced through his chest. The red-skinned man spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood quickly evaporated in the air and turned into smoke. Chun Zhao could see that the smoke contained strong magic power. When a magic smoke spread around, Chun Zhao immediately frowned and took a few steps back. However, the others didn't seem to notice anything wrong with the smoke. They all absorbed it more or less. This was especially so for Matthew, who was the closest to them. The skin on his face was slightly dark red, just like the red-skinned man. Kill him. Give him the righteous judgment. It was as if they didn't see the red lines on Matthew's face. Chun Zhao fell into deep thought. They seemed to be affected by the smoke too. Matthew himself didn't notice it at all. The spells he cast became even more violent. Boiling justice. A burning holy flame appeared on Matthew's lightsaber. Without hesitation, Matthew slashed at the red-skinned man's neck. Chapter 2269. The flaming lightsaber slashed at the red-skinned man's neck. Ah! The red-skinned man screamed in pain. The flaming lightsaber cut into 3 parts. Matthew wanted to go further, but he couldn't go any further. The red-skinned man roared. Large amounts of red smoke spewed out of the cut on his neck. The red-skinned man's body suddenly sank down. At the same time, he raised his right heel and kicked Matthew's chest. Matthew was kicked more than 10 meters away. He vomited a mouthful of blood. Matthew was clearly injured, but his face was flushed. Chun Zhao could clearly see that Matthew had inhaled large amounts of red smoke. The red-skinned man seemed to be the source of the pollution. He kept releasing the red smoke, so Matthew was naturally the first to be affected. The others were also affected. Chun Zhao was the only one who wasn't affected. Chun Zhao suddenly focused. This feeling was very similar to Cui Xian's domain power. They both affected one's emotions. Chun Zhao seemed to be affected. However, as long as one was rational enough, they wouldn't be controlled. Moreover, with his previous experience, Chun Zhao was even more familiar with emotional attacks. The red-skinned man was heavily injured. Blood and red smoke were still seeping out of the cut on his neck. Whoosh! Suddenly, the red-skinned man howled at the sky. He looked like a wolf in the forest. What's he doing? Is he calling for companions like a wolf? The person who'd spoken laughed, but the next moment his laughter stopped abruptly. Oh no! He's really calling for companions. Just then, the ground nearby suddenly bulged. Another red-skinned man stood up from the ground. Before anyone could react, another red-skinned woman jumped down from the top of a giant bee skeleton. She seemed to have been hiding there for a long time. Even Chun Zhao's senses were suppressed, so he didn't notice the woman. Moreover, the woman's figure was taller than the others of the same species. She didn't look very sturdy, but she gave off a strong sense of oppression. Moreover, her hair was very thick, or more accurately, thicker than anyone else's. Chun Zhao turned to look at the other red-skinned men. They were also very hairy. However, the woman's hair was the thickest. It was probably 2 or 3 times thicker than normal people's, and it was all tied behind her head. Under the call of the first red-skinned man, a total of 23 companions came to his aid. They all had red skin and thick hair. Matthew's injuries were not serious, and after giving himself a simple holy light nourishment, his injuries had already recovered by 80 to 90%. However, when he looked at the red-skinned woman in the lead, his face showed some hesitation. Chun Zhao looked at the red-skinned woman. She was completely naked. Could it be that Matthew was tempted by her beauty? The red-skinned woman wasn't ugly, but she was 2 heads taller than Matthew. She was estimated to be about 4 meters tall. If the 2 of them get together, Chun Zhao rubbed his chin as lewd images appeared in his mind. Then he shuddered. That scene was truly unbearable. Suddenly, a wave of coldness came straight at him. Chun Zhao suddenly woke up, but the attack was already in front of him. Chun Zhao sat on the ground. The attack was too sudden. Chun Zhao's senses were also sealed, so he didn't realize it until it was right in front of him. In everyone's eyes, they only thought that Chun Zhao was weak and lacked battle experience. Chun Zhao's absent-mindedness and strange expression proved their guesses. Thankfully, someone beside him helped Chun Zhao out. Chun Zhao remembered that the woman was called Angie. Angie looked down at Chun Zhao, who was sitting on the ground in a sorry state. You shouldn't be absent-minded on the battlefield, Angie said arrogantly. It'll cost you your life, especially when you're not very strong. You have to be more careful of all your enemies. Chun Zhao was absent-minded again. This woman's attitude was exactly the same as his past self. Basically, when he had the advantage, he would teach others or show off. However, Chun Zhao had never thought that he would be taught a lesson by others one day. Bang! An extremely loud sound boomed in Chun Zhao's ears. Following it was a huge impact. Angie stood before Chun Zhao again. I said, don't be absent-minded. Chun Zhao looked up at Angie and then at the person who had attacked him. It was the red-skinned woman. The first time she had attacked him was a surprise attack. She had charged at him without any warning. The second time, she had spat out a fireball. The red-skinned woman's 2 attacks didn't succeed, so she didn't continue. Her limbs were on the ground, and she growled at everyone like a wild beast. Why did she attack me? Am I easy to bully? Chun Zhao asked, turning his head to look at Angie. Angie glanced at him and nodded. Probably. The red-skinned woman licked her lips. Let's fight. Come, let's fight. Let's fight with all our strength. Chun Zhao was confused. What's wrong with these people? They're all so warlike. However, Angie was also affected. Streaks of red blood could already be seen under her skin. It wasn't as serious as Matthew's, but it wasn't light either. Moreover, they didn't seem to notice their companion's abnormality. Was he the only one who could see the red streaks? Just as Chun Zhao was distracted again, Matthew spoke. Yusilai? Motorcycle? It's you guys? Matthew's tone showed that he was very surprised. He seemed to recognize the red-skinned woman and the other red-skinned man. What's going on? How did you become like this? Matthew asked. It seemed that Matthew didn't just know them. They were very close. The red-skinned woman in the lead grinned. Matthew, you look the same as 10 years ago. You don't seem to have aged at all. Yusilai, you still remember me? You're not controlled. Matthew originally thought that Yushili was being controlled by something, but Yushili could still call out his name. Judging from her mind and tone, she didn't seem to be controlled. Why exactly? Kill me, or let me kill you, and you'll understand, Yusilai said in a calm, yet crazy tone. You're crazy. Huh, come, fight me, the crazy me. Is there something you can't tell me? Tell me. I'll help you. There's nothing. I'm very good right now. Seems like you're really crazy. Maybe I should use holy power to wake you up. Chapter 2270. Matthew could see the madness in Yusilai and the other red-skinned people, but he didn't realize that he was also moving forward on the path of madness. Yusilai arched her body slightly. Her palms, which had been pressed against the ground, also left the ground. Red smoke started rising from her palms. The red smoke didn't disperse. Instead, it condensed into a pair of long swords that looked like they were made of rubies. Matthew was even more confused. What had happened to Yusilai? Back then, Yusilai should have been an elemental spiritualist. But looking at her current posture, her fighting style had completely changed. Yusilai seemed to have locked a wild beast inside her body. It was the same with the motorcycle. However, the current situation didn't allow him to think too much. The team of 10 people had already started fighting with the other red-skinned people. Yusilai charged at Matthew, who faced her head-on. The flaming lightsaber clashed with the red crystal longsword. Sparks and red dust flew into the air. Looks like you've grown a lot in the past 10 years, Yusilai said as she attacked wildly. Her attacks were crazy, but her tone was very rational. She was even recalling the time when she and Matthew had met. Matthew was also attacking and defending, but hearing Yusilai's words, he also sank into his memories. Yushili had met him during the last battle of the Holy Glorious One. 10 years ago, Yusilai had been as powerful as Matthew. As a powerful elemental witch, she had shone brightly in the entire holy glory. If not for Matthew, a genius of the church, Yusilai would probably have been the brightest star in the last battle of holy glory. In the end, Yusilai still lost to Matthew. But she didn't lose in terms of strength. She lost in terms of inheritance. Yusilai was the heir of a witch family, and behind Matthew was the entire church. In terms of inheritance, there weren't many forces in the world that could compete with the church. But after that battle, they hadn't seen each other again. Matthew had never thought that they would be reunited under such circumstances. Chun Zhao watched the crazy fighting on the battlefield. Everyone was showing their craziest side. The others didn't know, but Matthew shouldn't be like this. His rationality seemed to be disappearing from his body bit by bit, and he didn't notice it at all. Everyone at the scene didn't notice it, even though Chun Zhao had warned Matthew beforehand. But he still descended into madness. At this moment, the third team appeared. There were 7 of them. They were also part of the Holy Glory participants who were trapped here. Moreover, from the state of their bodies, they had already fought once. There were more or less bloodstains and injuries on their bodies. A normal person's thought process will be to find a place to recuperate after being injured. But looking at their attitude and actions, it was clear that they were not here to rest. They directly joined the battle. There was no hesitation or retreat. The group that had suddenly joined the battle was even crazier than Matthew and the others. Apart from the clothes on their bodies, their skin had already turned completely red. At this moment, a brown-haired girl rushed into the battlefield. "Stop! Stop, all of you!" Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. The girl didn't seem to be affected. That girl should be a companion of the third group. But she didn't look the least bit deranged. The girl wanted to rush into the battlefield several times to stop the battle. However, she didn't seem to be very strong. At least in Chen Zhao's eyes, the girl was still far from being able to participate in the battle of Holy Glory. The girl's voice was hoarse, but it was useless. "Do you want some throat lozenges?" Suddenly, an abrupt voice rang in the girl's ears. "Ah!" The girl fell to the ground. "You're even more cowardly than me." Only then did the girl look up. It was a sickly man. Who are you?" The girl realized that the sickly man's skin was very normal. There were no red spots. "You're not affected either?" the girl asked before Chen Zhao could speak. Chen Zhao was also very curious about the girl. Why wasn't she affected? His overall ability was strong, so he wasn't affected. But looking at this girl, she didn't seem to have much magic power. She could only have a special spell that could resist the red gas. While Chen Zhao was studying the girl was also studying Chen Zhao. Looking at Chen Zhao's sickly appearance, he didn't seem to have any ability. Naturally, she thought that Chen Zhao should have the same spell as her, or at least similar. "Why aren't you affected?" Chen Zhao asked. "Don't you have the answer yourself? Why bother asking?" Chen Zhao's face twitched. "What answer do I have? What if I tell you that I don't have an answer?" "You don't have an answer? How you resist the red gas is how I resist it. Since we're the same kind of people, there's no need to keep secrets," the girl said nonchalantly. "Red gas?" Chen Zhao really didn't know how to resist it, because he didn't resist it at all. Although Chen Zhao wasn't invincible yet, 99% of the external evils in the world were useless against him. However, 99% of the external evils in this world were basically ineffective against him. Seeing the confusion on Chen Zhao's face, the girl asked tentatively, "You really don't know that it's red gas?" Seeing the confusion on Chen Zhao's face, the girl asked tentatively, "You really don't know that this is the red gas?" "No, I don't know either." The girl immediately shook her head. But looking at her expression, Chen Zhao could tell that she knew. She knew everything. But looking at the girl's expression, she was clearly saying, I know everything." The girl hesitated and then shook her head. "I don't know. Those are your friends?" Chen Zhao asked, pointing at the third group of people. "Are those your friends?" Chen Zhao asked, pointing at the third team that had joined the battle. The girl nodded. "Yes. They look dangerous. They might die here." Frightened by Chen Zhao, the girl immediately lost her composure. "What should we do? What am I going to do? No, I have to stop them. What should I do? Do you have a way to wake them up?" "I can, but as soon as I get close, they attack me. I can't use scarlet purification." "In other words, as long as they don't resist, you can wake them up?" The girl looked at the battlefield. "My magic power isn't strong enough, so I can't guarantee that I can wake everyone up. And those who have turned completely red, I can't purify them. They've turned into scarlet thugs." "Scarlet thugs? What is this? Are they the ones with red skin?" "Those are high-level scarlet defilers," the girl said. Chapter 2271. Are they classified according to their level of contamination? Chen Zhao asked. The girl nodded. Pointing at the first few with red skin, she said, "Those people are the highest level. They've been completely contaminated by the red gas. Moreover, they can continuously produce red gas and contaminate others. So they're called defilers?" "Yes, the weakest ones are the scarlet thugs. They haven't been completely transformed by the scarlet gas, but their bodies have undergone great changes. In theory, if I have enough strength, I can still force the scarlet gas out of their bodies. However, with my magic power, I can't force the scarlet gas out. As for those with lighter symptoms, they're infected. As long as I can force the scarlet gas out of their bodies in time, their bodies and minds can still return to normal. Then what's the source of the red gas? Chen Zhao asked. These scarlet defilers were obviously transformed from necromancers. Chen Zhao could hear this from Matthew and Yuseli's conversation. What about before these scarlet defilers? It was either an object or a person. There had to be a source. The girl hesitated for a long time and then shook her head. I don't know. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. This girl didn't even know how to lie. What's your name? Chen Zhao asked. Indelia. Do you know what this place is? This is the ancient Scarlet Battlefield. The ancient Scarlet Battlefield? Please don't tell me there's something sealed here. No. Indelia hurriedly waved her hands in denial. Chen Zhao sighed. The more Indelia reacted like this, the more likely there was something hidden here. What a headache. He hoped that whatever was sealed here wouldn't escape. He hoped that everything here had nothing to do with him. That's good. Chen Zhao was happy that Indelia denied it. He was afraid that Indelia would tell him that it was to maintain world peace and then force him to do more scenes. Chen Zhao turned his head to look at Matthew and the other teammates. He sighed. They'd taken care of him before. It didn't matter if their care was meaningful. At least they were friends. He couldn't just stand by and watch. Chen Zhao took a few steps forward and took a deep breath. Then, he let out a thunderous roar. Matthew! That voice instantly caused an uproar. Whether it was the scarlet contaminants or the spiritualists who had yet to convert, they all stopped instantly. Matthew's consciousness also fluctuated violently. Haven't you noticed that there's something wrong with you? And your companions, is this how you lead them? A pained expression appeared on Matthew's face. Matthew began to pant heavily, and with each breath, red gas leaked out of his mouth. Amazing. He's actually able to expel the red gas from his body. Delia's face was filled with shock. The red gas did not completely dissipate. Instead, it gathered above Matthew's head. Delia immediately stepped forward and cast a spell from a distance of more than 20 meters. The red cloud above Matthew's head seemed to be attracted by India and began to rush toward her. But the red cloud came to a halt in front of Delia. As Delia continued to rub her palms, the red cloud became smaller and smaller until it completely disappeared. Didn't he expel the scarlet gas from his body? What were you doing just now? The scarlet gas will not dissipate on its own. If the scarlet gas is not completely purified, it will quickly be absorbed back into the body. Therefore, every time the scarlet gas is expelled from the body, it needs to be completely purified. Chin, come and help me. Matthew was very weak at the moment. His arms supported him from the ground. He could not even stand up, so he could only ask for Chen Zhao's help. Chen Zhao helped Matthew up and sent him to a nearby rock to sit down to rest. How do you feel? Very bad, Matthew said weakly. I feel like I'm weaker than you right now. Let me check. Then, Chen Zhao lifted Matthew's wrist. At the moment, Matthew wasn't just weak. His blood seemed to have depleted too. Phew! Luckily you were there just now. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have gone crazy too. Matthew's face was extremely pale. As the red gas dispersed, there were no more red spots on his face, but it was still frighteningly pale. You should thank that girl, Chen Zhao said, pointing at Delia. Thank you, Mississippi. My companions are still in trouble. Can you help them solve the problem? Delia looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao shrugged. Sure. Are you sure? You don't look much better than him, Delia said. Chen Zhao grabbed Matthew's shoulder and sent some life force into him. Matthew suddenly felt vigorous energy flow from Chen Zhao's palm into his body. His weakness was receding like the tide. This feels really good. Don't stop. I can only help you this much. The rest is up to you, Chen Zhao said. This spell makes me feel really good. What is it? Can you teach me? No. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. The lesson he was teaching him was life force. Chen Zhao was only giving him blood to replenish his lost blood. How could he give him extra life force? Although Chen Zhao had a lot of life force, it was like a non-renewable resource on Earth. Every time he used it, he would have less. Chun Zhao wouldn't give Matthew more life force. Plus, he couldn't teach it to Matthew. Even if he learned it, he couldn't cast it, unless he was willing to share his life force with others. By the way, is the guy sealed here related to the Scarlet Church? No. Wait. I didn't say anything was sealed here. Delia hurriedly covered her mouth, but her slow reaction couldn't keep the secret. Chun Zhao had only used a little bit of calculation, and he had already played Delia around like a fiddle. But this wasn't good news for Chun Zhao. Can you explain it to me? No need. You'll understand soon, Chun Zhao said calmly. Okay, I've talked to people like this many times, but this is the first time someone said it to me. How's your rest? This girl said that if we don't heal your teammates soon, they'll be completely swallowed by the scarlet gas. Okay, I'll do it now. Be careful. Don't let it twist your mind again. Chapter 2272. With his previous experience, Matthew was even more careful this time. Sometimes people would not learn to be obedient after suffering a loss once. They would only truly wake up after suffering a loss twice. Matthew was like this. This time, he cast an isolation spell on himself. Then, he started to attack. His first target was Angie. Chun Zhao looked at the situation on the battlefield. Another group of people charged over from afar. This group was even worse than the spiritualists from before. Their bodies had been completely corroded by the red gas. They had lost all rationality. As soon as they arrived, they joined the battlefield and attacked anyone they wanted. This caused the situation to become more and more chaotic. The first person to die also appeared. Chun Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at the chaos. In such an intense battle, people should have died long ago. But only when this team joined did there start to be casualties. The Scarlet Defilers that had appeared at the beginning were the strongest. However, they didn't kill anyone. They seemed to hold back a third of their strength when they fought with them. This caused them to keep getting injured. After careful observation, Chun Zhao finally understood. They weren't killing people. They were creating more of their kind. Every time they were injured, red gas would seep out of their wounds. Moreover, the scarlet energy would definitely be absorbed. This would make the spiritualist's symptoms worse and worse. In the end, they would be completely corroded. On the spiritualist side, Matthew was the strongest. Chun Zhao's gaze fell on Matthew. Right now, Matthew's magic power had probably recovered by 60%. But he had an overwhelming advantage over Angie. They used the same spell, but they could instantly tell who was stronger. Angie, calm down. Don't be controlled by your madness and anger. I have to purify them. They must die. Anyone who stands in the way of my justice must die. Matthew, are you going to stop me too? Angie's innocent and beautiful face now revealed a ferocious and terrifying expression. For Matthew, any words were superfluous at the moment. Matthew stretched out his hand to grab Angie from a few meters away. Two silver chains flickering with holy radiance shot out from the void, directly binding Angie tightly. Let me go, Angie bellowed, and a pair of angel-like wings shot out from her back. However, that pair of angel wings, which should have been pure white and flawless, was now tinged with red. In an instant, the silver chains shattered as Angie spread her angel wings. Stop, Matthew shouted, and the magic in his body instantly burst out. However, in the next moment, Matthew immediately realized that he could not be swayed by his emotions and immediately calmed down. It's really troublesome to pay attention to not being affected here, Matthew muttered to himself. However, his hands did not stop at all. He knew Angie too well. Although Angie was his comrade in arms, she was also his student. Angie's outstanding bloodline and talent were all grown under his watch, bit by bit. So when the furious angel showed her angel wings, Matthew wasn't surprised. Of course, if Matthew was at his peak, he could easily suppress Angie. However, he had yet to fully recover, so his strength was far from his peak. Angie flapped her wings and charged at Matthew. Matthew stood where he was, looking like he was going to be captured without a fight. However, the next moment, a pair of pure white wings spread out from Matthew's back. Calm down. Matthew moved in an instant and pressed down with his palm. He pressed Angie to the ground. Angie wanted to struggle, but Matthew was one step ahead. He was behind Angie and held her wings firmly with both hands. "Oh!" Chun Zhao exclaimed. Angie's wings were real, but Matthew's wings were not. He had used his own holy light power to create this pair of wings. In the end, the real one was suppressed by the fake one. Chun Zhao was curious. What was the use of angel wings? Matthew's angel wings used a lot of magic, but Matthew still used a lot of magic to create a pair of wings. Because his senses were sealed, Chun Zhao could not accurately sense the flow of magic in Matthew's body. "Miss Endelia, please hurry. After all, I can't control her for too long." Under Matthew's urging, Endelia immediately jogged over to Matthew and Angie. Ignoring Angie's struggle, Endelia started guiding the red gas out of Angie's body. The process was the same as Matthew's. The difference was that Matthew used his own willpower to expel the red gas. Angie clearly did not have as strong a willpower as Matthew. However, with Endelia's help, Angie's struggle was no longer as intense. The manic and crazed look on her face also faded. Of course, Angie still remembered everything that had just happened clearly. Angie fell to the ground, limp. She said weakly, "Captain, Mr. Matthew, can you let go of me? Also, I know that you plucked a few of my feathers. Give them back to me." Matthew smiled awkwardly and let go of Angie. "It's probably your illusion. I didn't do anything." With that, Matthew looked at Chun Zhao. "Chun, can you help Angie recover?" Cough, cough, cough. "Okay, I'll come up. Cough, cough." Chun Zhao suddenly started coughing. It felt like he was going to cough out his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. Looking at Chun Zhao, he was afraid that he would spit out a mouthful of blood. Seeing Chun Zhao walk over shakily, Matthew immediately said, Okay, forget it. If you really have the ability, you should suppress your injuries first. Let Angie lie down." Chun Zhao shrugged helplessly. "Fine." Matthew took a deep breath and looked at the others who were still in a frenzy. He wasn't in a good state right now, even though Chun Zhao had helped him recover a little. However, his battle with Angie still made him feel uncontrollably weak. But now was not the time to sigh. Since he was the leader, he had to let all his team members leave this trial safely. Chun Zhao looked at Matthew's figure. Actually, even if he suppressed his power now, it would be a piece of cake for him to recover Angie. However, Chun Zhao really wanted to see where Matthew's limit was. Right now, Matthew had already displayed great power. He was even more powerful than everyone in the Supernatural Organization's team. But this shouldn't be his limit. Chun Zhao was also secretly shocked. As a top-notch fighter, he could fight against John from the church, or even be stronger. But in terms of low-level fighters, there was still a huge gap between the Supernatural Organization and the church. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.